I've seen championship winning teams, right, at City. I've seen all 8 of them, whatever it is we've won. This isn't one. This is not one.
Tyson Fury, Floyd Mayweather, Canelo Alvarez. Just hearing these names makes you think money and the hundreds of millions of dollars, pounds or Saudi riyals in boxing. But that's at the top. At the bottom, it isn't quite the same. Even for those on the rise, there's not an awful lot of cash in the boxing world. And if you're just starting out, well, it can be a very costly exercise indeed. But don't take my word for it. Here's the former European champion, talkSPORT's Spencer Oliver.
You're turning professional and you're boxing, let's say, York Hall on a non-televised fight. You have to sell tickets to earn any money, but you have to cover the wages of your opponent as well. So if you don't have the ability to be able to sell enough tickets, you effectively have to pay to fight.
A far cry then from Jake Paul facing Mike Tyson in 2024, when the purse was reported to be around £48 million. But the vast amounts of cash lining the top dog's pockets isn't the norm in a typical fight.
Let's say you're lucky and you get between 5 and 10 grand. You're going to get 10 grand max for that. 10% goes to the trainer, 25% goes to the manager. Then we've got the tax man to pay as well. So we're cutting that money in at least half. So now you've got 5 grand for a 10-week camp. So you're talking about a guy here earning, he might be clearing 500 quid a week. How do you support a family on that? So boxers chase the dream. And, you know, there's probably 2% of them that actually make it.
So say you do make it and you start to rise up the ranks. Strikers Boxing, a training academy, says the mid-tier fighters can earn more, somewhere between £10,000 and £50,000 a fight, depending on record, profile, opponent and popularity of weight class. It's only at the top level does the real cash start flowing in, with the top-tier professionals, i.e. those going for titles, earning 6 figures a fight. Something else you'll have heard of is the terms prize fighter or journeyman. A prize fighter is, as it sounds, someone who picks up fights where they can and gets a nice big check if they win. Journeymen are the fighters who take on up-and-comers, effectively used for experience in the ring. Even if they're going up against a real prospect, a young Anthony Joshua, for example, these guys will be lucky to earn more than 10 grand. So the average boxer isn't as rich as you'd think.
Good morning, everybody. You're listening to Jim White and Simon Jordan. We're live on talkSPORT. So Sean Dyche sacked by Nottingham Forest. 3 sackings in 1 season. Is this latest move by Marinakis a sign of desperation, or is it justified? Meanwhile, Sir Jim Ratcliffe claims the UK has been colonised by immigrants, condemned by fan groups, anti-discrimination charities and the Prime Minister. Should he apologise? Will he apologise? Also today, a new contract for Thomas Tuchel. A reward for nothing? How does Frank come out of the Spurs experience? Giving up the Olympics for a cause, is it to be admired? And from midday, we talk boxing with fight pundit Spencer Oliver. It's Jim White and Simon Jordan, and we are live on talkSPORT.
100% engagement.
Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT.
Good morning, everybody. Mr. Jordan, good morning.
Good morning.
I will double task here because in my ear I'm hearing what? The FA have just announced, that's the official announcement, that Thomas Tuchel has signed a new contract that keeps him in the England job until 2028. So that is beyond the Euros, Simon, which, as you and I know, are hosted in this country. So I wonder why they're doing this. I wonder why they're saying, Thomas, put pen to paper for us. Here's the deal, because up until now, it was our understanding, well, not our understanding, it was a matter of fact. He was there until the end of the World Cup.
Yeah. He was brought in to win the World Cup.
It was World Cup or bust, that's right.
Maybe he wasn't. And maybe there's a need for stability and continuity in the England manager's job, because that's the bedrock of football. I would have thought that the nature of him getting another contract must have been based upon doing something significant in the actual tournament, because he wasn't brought in to qualify us. Because with due respect, we can get Elmer Fudd to do that in the qualifying group that we're in, right? We need someone that can take us into a tournament and do something better than the previous manager did, and he got close. And he's done the same thing as the previous manager did, which was stroll through the qualifying. And yes, there's much more to Thomas Tuchel. And yes, we can see the green shoots of someone that really knows how to prepare an international team. But if we're in the business of participating and not winning, then why are we going with the territory of giving him a new contract? Unless there's some motivation behind it that we have yet to see, that they believe emphatically in the Thomas Tuchel vision and don't see any necessity to leave any doubt, don't want him to be taken out of the international equation because they want him, they believe in him emphatically. And if that's the case, then you say, okay, fair enough, but what are you basing it upon? Because it wasn't so long ago, maybe 8-9 months ago, that people were questioning England, questioning the style of play. Our performances were a little bit turgid, and then all of a sudden we've hit our groove.
Yes.
And we've got going. But we've got going against lesser opposition, and I don't understand it, but I don't have a particular problem with it because I think he's a very good manager.
Yeah, well, the FA chief exec, Mark Bullingham, I think I had a conversation with Mark in Germany at the Euros.
That was enlightening.
I think it did. On Tuchel's new deal until 2028. He was the right person for the job when he joined us for the World Cup campaign, and he's only strengthened his reputation across the qualifiers.
How?
There is simply no better candidate available in world football.
So would that change then?
So the qualifiers. Albania, Serbia, Latvia and Andorra.
I mean, pack it in.
Then 2 friendlies, Senegal and Wales.
I mean, pack it in. I mean, this is not elite opposition. I mean, he's an elite manager in my view. He's a difficult customer, and managing him at international level is probably a damn sight easier than managing him at domestic level, as has proven to be the case by every club that he's been in, his jettisoned his services, Bayern, PSG, Chelsea and so on, right? But at international level, you've probably got to deal with him a lot less, so you haven't got to deal with some of the challenges that he may bring. But there's no doubt he's an elite coach, and I like the fact that the players know precisely and concisely where they stand.
Yeah.
But he has done nothing yet. His job, in my view, was to go in and win the World Cup. Now, we know that the difficulty of winning the World Cup in America, it comes with the climate, and it favours perhaps the South Americans and the Spanish because they're built for those sort of climates. But notwithstanding that, his job was to get England past a team in a tournament that we're not on paper favourites to beat. And until he does that, why has he been given a new contract? Now, I understand that these guys say he's the best one in class. By your measurement, and who are you? What have you done that's so wonderful? Because I look at the FA, which I think is a clown college of underperforming people that don't govern the domestic game, have abdicated that responsibility, and have got very little right besides some optics now, because Gareth Southgate was popular with the British media.
Do you think in any way, Simon, this could be stay away Manchester United?
Maybe.
And don't have Tuchel sign anything before he goes to the World Cup in the USA?
I mean, maybe. It's interesting that Tuchel wants it. It's interesting that Tuchel has taken that direction of travel, because it tells you something about where he sees himself in his career. Because these managers at domestic level are far different than international managers, because the domestic managers are applying themselves on a daily, weekly, hourly basis to the next task in hand. As an elite manager, they've got so many games in front of them, so many things to manage, that they're very, very busy and very focused and driven.
Yeah.
And it requires a certain motivated person to do it. He obviously doesn't see himself in that role again, because the England manager's job, 6-7 games a year? It's a whole different ballgame. I'm not criticising it. I'm not saying that it's valueless. I'm not saying disputing how much he should get paid. I'm not arguing that point. I'm saying I felt that Thomas Tuchel wanted to be at the coalface. Clearly doesn't. So if he doesn't, if he's prepared to sign for England for another 3 years, then what are you pushing him away from? because he's already halfway there. Because if he wanted to be a busy manager and be at the coalface, he'd be there.
That's right. That's right. Should we be that surprised, though? Because when he spoke to talkSPORT last year, he was telling us how much he loved the England job and also how he'd be keen to extend his deal.
I will always be tempted to stay because I love the group and I love the opportunity. It's an honor to be English head coach. I know what's coming after a huge tournament in England. I will always be tempted. Like I said, I feel that I'm in the right place. I enjoy to be where I am at the moment. I love the new challenge. I wanted a new challenge. I wanted a new environment. I feel the support. I feel the trust and the respect of the people in the federation. I love the group of players. I want to push them, and it just feels right. So yeah, clear yes from my side until today.
Simon, what happens if Tuchel and England in the USA
stink it out?
Say go out in the quarterfinals. Exactly. Not maybe stink it out, but go out at a stage.
But what happens if they stink it out?
Will disappoint the English nation.
Well, that's the risk you take, isn't it?
Well, and everyone's going, oh God, we've got this guy.
That's the risk-reward calculation that I'm assuming the geniuses at the FA have weighed up and looked at and gone, well, we are confident that we're not going to have a problem in our hands as a result of our participation in the World Cup. So we're so confident that we're going to give somebody who's come in and done the exact same job as our predecessors have done a longer-term contract. I have mixed emotions about trying to compartmentalize people into moments in time, but surely if you could do it to Venables in the mid-90s and make him only a one tournament manager. I know there was a lot outside of the arena in terms of his business affairs that created problems for the weak-willed FA that couldn't see past it and just look at him as a football manager.
Yeah,
I believe they should be driven by tournaments because this is the cycle that they're in, and the only thing that should be meriting a new contract, in my view, for England is a wonderful performance in a tournament.
Or maybe even if he just won the World Cup, then give him the bumper of all bumper deals.
I'm going to give him. He'll have got that anyway. Don't worry. I'm going to give him latitude and a bit of wiggle room in there. I'm going to say a wonderful performance in a tournament because I don't mind if they play a resurgent Brazil in the semi-finals and get beat by a 94th minute penalty that no one saw coming. I can live with that.
Yeah,
I can live with that. I'd prefer to see a victory, but I can live with not noble failure, but England going toe-to-toe and really turning it on and being unlucky. And I go, do you know what? That's a moment in time.
Yeah.
Fortune favours the brave. But the idea that you reward somebody for doing what you brought him in to do. What did you bring him in to do? You brought him in to bleed and qualify in a group that anyone could have gone through. So you reward him. I mean, I find it difficult. Maybe I'm just a miserable old sod. I find it difficult to look at that and go, well, that's a wonderful set of thinking from the FA. Because I have little regard for them anyway. I think most of them are bleeding useless in there and they shouldn't have the jobs that they have. But Tuchel, I hope he does well.
Good morning, Mr. Billingham.
I hope, well, specifically him. I hope for us that Tuchel does well.
Yes.
I hope he does well.
I'm a bit baffled. He's strengthened his reputation across the qualifiers. Is it just me? Albania, Serbia, Latvia, Andorra. I wonder if, Simon, in any way, is this bad news for Eddie Howe? Because so often spoken about in the same breath as Eddie, the next England manager. Often touted as the next England manager.
Well, I don't know.
Now it's a back seat until
I think Eddie Howe is fully focused on trying to achieve things with Newcastle. And of course, as an Englishman, I would imagine most Englishmen want to, at some stage in their career, have the ultimate honour of managing their country. I mean, we missed out from arguably the greatest manager that could have managed England with Brian Clough because of the political ramifications of what he may or may not have said. We lost an excellent coach at international level in Terry Venables because the FA and people like Bert Milicic were too entranced in their ways about what was happening off the field rather than whether he's a good coach. But Eddie Howe is still a very young manager. And I think that these managers, what's he in his mid-40s now? Mid to late 40s. Yeah. What's Tuchel in his early 50s? So if you find yourself in a situation where Eddie Howe, and Tuchel has won things. He's managed big clubs. He's managed PSG. He's managed Bayern. He's managed Chelsea. He's won things. Eddie's still got that journey to go on. And more often than not, when you land in the international in the international world, you don't tend to come back to domestic football. And I know there's exceptions. I understand there's exceptions. But the predominant rule is it's a slightly older man's job at a slightly different stage in his career. But there's no orthodoxy. It's getting rewritten because Pochettino may well come back to Spurs if you're to believe what the direction of
no noise whatsoever. Scotland, we're quietly getting organised to play Haiti.
You know, you're coming back and order.
A new contract for Tuchel then until 2028. England fans, how do you view this morning? You might want to give us a call on that. I mean, is it good news in your eyes? Are you a fan of Thomas Tuchel, or is this rewarding Tuchel for so far nothing? 03717 223344.
My view of punditry is when I listen to a pundit, whoever that pundit might be, whatever they may be, whether it's male, female, black, white, yellow, green, it's do I learn something from them? Do they engage me? Do I find them interesting and entertaining? And do they merit my attention? And that's my response to the reasons why I was saying the things I said.
He's sitting right beside you.
Yeah, I you know, it's an opinion, isn't it? Which we're all entitled to. I put value on opinions. Right, you have to, because there's, you know, everybody has them, right? So I'm not going to listen to a mob on X who've never, ever put themselves in any situation to do anything close to what I've done in my career. I listen to the professionals, right? I listen to the people who've hired me for the last 11 years around the world, the biggest broadcasters in the world. By default, if I'm working with the people who are considered the brilliant broadcasters, then if I'm in the same team as them, next to them, then by default, I'm considered also a brilliant broadcaster. So I take everything you're saying, but the reality is I've been good enough for 11 years, right? And as I said, I'm the person that will go and seek out feedback for someone to go, I think you're struggling. It's never happened.
See, the language that you use, Annie, is, to me, it's steeped in a sense of entitlement. I mean, the sheer weight of the entitlement that you seem to believe that you have would resink the Titanic. I think you've been quite fortuitous. I think because of initiatives
everybody. A lot to get through this morning, and then when we get to 12 noon, of course, we'll be talking boxing in the company of the diminutive but very effective Spencer Oliver. Many people getting in touch about Thomas Tuchel. We will take your calls further down the line. Thomas Tuchel, the FA have announced, has a contract now until 2028. They've extended it. Tony James from London. Good morning, Tony. I'm surprised he extended his contract now and not after the World Cup. Simon is right. Let him go win something or advance, impressively in the World Cup, then yes. But why? Why do it now? Maybe, as you say, it's because they want to keep Manchester United away. It's got a hint of that, Simon, I must say. Because no one knows.
It may be.
His bosses included. No one knows what they're going to get from Tuchel in the US.
I mean, I would have been comfortable with the FA giving him a minimum criteria of reward against achievements. So saying to Thomas Tuchel, look, we're going to give you a new contract. Stand on us with this contract. You have to achieve a minimum of a quarterfinal or semi-finals of the World Cup.
Yeah.
And if Tuchel goes, well, I'm not going to do that, then what are you backing? Because he should be backing himself. So whether that flies in the world of football these days, because everyone's entitled to something before they've done anything, is a different conversation. But the idea that you're fending off, the fact that Tuchel is an international manager, the fact that he's prepared to continue being an international manager tells you where his mindset is. Because if he was really drawn and pulled back into domestic management because it was a calling and he needed the day-to-day buzz, he needed the day-to-day control, he needed the ability to be able to play games, be live all the time and powerful as a result of it because you're such an important, omnipotent football manager, he'd be doing that and he'd be saying to the FA, well, it's wonderful, but I came here to win the World Cup for you and I want to get back to domestic football. So you're already pushing against an open door, it feels like.
Well, that's right. That's right. Tuchel's there until 2028. England fans, what do you think? 03717 223344. We'll take your calls in a bit. But so much going on. Hot on the heels of Thomas Frank being shown the door at Tottenham Hotspur. Sean Dyche was sacked by Nottingham Forest last night. I looked at the 0-0 result and I thought, this doesn't look good for him. I really did feel it. They might pull the trigger, and they did. Forest held to the scoreless draw at home by Wolves. Forest remain 3 points above the Premier League relegation zone with 12 games left. They've won 2 of their past 10. In the league in total, he won 6 from 18 in all competition, and that's 25 games under Sean. 10 wins, 6 draws, and 9 losses. Forest finished 13th in the Europa League group table. They face Fenerbahce of Turkey over 2 legs this month for the chance to reach the last 16. But Sean Dyche will not be in the technical area for that. Heading into the game, Dyche pushed back on talk that, Sean, maybe your job's under threat.
The ownership have always had contact with me, and he's well aware, and I made this clear to all of you, he's well aware that this wasn't a situation where it's just smooth sailing all the way through. He's seen some of the hiccups, some of the good days, some of the not so good days, etc., etc. But, we come off the Palace game with a 10v11 situation, got a really important point and a good one, and he's congratulating me. So I don't think over one game is that extreme where he's suddenly going to go, right, we need to change everything at the club for the 3rd time, but 4th time even. But you never know, but I'm a realist, and he is as well, I think, and he's been very good with that about the current situation and what we took over here.
I like Sean, but on this occasion, I don't think he read the room right, Simon. Post-match, Marinakis understood to have held crisis talks with senior players. Players are believed to express concern over Dyche's management and coaching methods in recent weeks. 3 sackings in 1 season. Is this latest move by Marinakis a sign of desperation, or is it justified?
Well, I mean, I saw various things that one of the newspapers was writing, I think it was the Mail, about the fact that this was to do with his relationship in the dressing room with players, an exhaustive training schedule which was depleting the energy of the players. The owner sitting down with players and taking their counsel, I find mind-blowing, but I guess it might be a symptom of the modern game. It's a reality. Sean Dyche, I felt, was the extra sauce that will give them the grit and the resilience to turn this season from being an absolute car crash into one that's not great and might just keep them in the Premier League. And that's what I was talking about yesterday. When I saw the result, I didn't immediately draw my mind to the fact that Dyche would get sacked. I did think it was a very poor result. It was a game that they needed to win. Wolves are not quite the mugs that they were 4 or 5 weeks ago, but they're no great shakes, and you should be beating Wolves. And certainly, I mean, if you look at the statistics, it looks like Forest battered them. 35 shots on goal from what I can see. But the fact is, this was a game that they needed to win. Marinakis is unpredictable. Sean, and Thomas Frank didn't see these things coming, and perhaps they should. More so in Thomas Frank's case than Sean Dyche's, because Sean Dyche was brought in. If Sean Dyche continued the run that he's on with the wins that they've got, they would be staying in the division. If he continues with a 33% win rate, Nottingham Forest would be staying in the division. Because if they're going to get another 5 wins out of the last X amount of games, which that statistic bears out, they'd be staying in the division.
Okay. Yeah.
So pulling the trigger. I mean, look, Marinakis has obviously listened to players and taken their view, and I hope that serves him well. And I mean that with my tongue firmly placed in my cheek, because it doesn't normally work out that way.
You never do that.
Did
you never do that?
God, no. Because they're self-centered sods that are the architects of the problem, and then they're the ones that you go and consult.
You never took the view from the dressing room ever?
Absolutely not.
Not even a specific player?
No. I mean, I've said this repeatedly, and I'm incredibly fond of him, and I'm glad he's gone on to make a great career of himself at administrative levels in Dougie Freedman. But every year, Dougie Freedman used to come knocking on my door and wanted to tell me about Peter Taylor or X, Y, Z. I was not interested. I'm not interested in your view. You're a player. I can see for myself what's happening on the field. I can see where the results are not good enough. I'm not blind. I'm not deaf. I can see it for myself. I don't need your input.
Yeah, hang on, Simon. Say you're Marinakis and you hear whispers of discontent between some of the senior players and Sean. If indeed that was the case, you're down in that dressing room. Listen. My relationship is with my manager. He's the champion. He's the guy that runs that dressing room, not me. If I'm an access point for players, what authority have I given my manager? If my players know that they can come round the door, round the side of a manager and come to me, you have just made that manager a eunuch. What's the purpose of that? Then, if you don't want the manager, fire him. But you don't have a group of players with their particular disposition, which is normally predicated upon something that they don't like or haven't got. I'm not interested in what they don't like. Do as you're told, play football to a high standard, and get on with your job. And if the manager's not good enough, it'll out itself. I want to put this to you. They sack Nuno, they appoint Postecoglou, they sack him 39 days later. They appoint Sean Dyche, sack him 114 days later. A fourth managerial appointment beckoning. Do Forest deserve relegation?
Are they the architects of their own downfall? Have they inflicted themselves wounds? Yeah. Same guy that dragged them out of the Championship, same guy that bankrolled them, same guy that's got big ambitions, same guy that was behind the appointment of Nuno Espirito Santo that took them into Europe and has given them opportunities, deserves to have that currency. But this is on him.
This on Marinakis.
Well, of course it is.
And it's the here and now, Simon,
Of course
isn't
it is.
It's the here and now.
But also the nuance. I mean, Nuno Espirito Santo is no bowl of cherries to deal with. I know people that have worked alongside him. He's not an easy character, right? But
he got them into Europe.
It's not about easy characters. It's about people that can do their jobs.
Right.
And so it looks to me as if he was undermined by the owner, and that's why we had the tantrum and turn on the press conference that he did that got him eventually sacked, and everyone knew. Well, I certainly knew it was coming. Postecoglou, I cannot understand the fit, but that fit was preordained in his mind. He wasn't looking at the individual and the circumstances of the team that he had and what they could actually do. He was looking at his pipe dream of what he felt was Postecoglou's brand of football, and not really looking at the resource that Postecoglou was going to deploy. So he did right to pivot out of that. He did right to pivot out of it quickly. And he brought Sean Dyche in to do a job, which was not to make them have bells and whistles and fly and be easy on the eye. It was to get them away from the relegation zone. And I know that the result against Wolves is a bad result. It's a result they needed to win. Again, they needed to win because it would stop the forward momentum of West Ham to some extent.
Yeah.
Now, West Ham know that they're in touching distance of Nottingham Forest. The West Ham team that were beaten by Nottingham Forest 6 weeks ago, not even that, 5 weeks ago, that looked dead on their feet are now alive. And Forest are now looking at... The fascinating thing will be, who does he bring in? And who is going to take it forward to provide the solution that he seems to believe that Sean Dyche is no longer capable of, because he's listened to a group of players. Now, what he clearly will be doing is managing the short term, because he cannot listen to players in the long term. He cannot take the view of players. Otherwise, if you're going to listen to players in the long term strategy of running a football club, what is the purpose of having a manager?
Right, I'm going to put it out there. What next for Nottingham Forest? What next for Tottenham Hotspur? We're going to take your calls the other side of 10:30. But on Nottingham Forest, Sean Dyche has gone. So as Simon asks, who is next? But the actual act of sacking him, Marinakis sacking Dyche, was it a sign of desperation or was it justified in your view? 03717 223344.
Romero does what he does. Right, ridiculous tackle. Thomas Frank cannot be blamed for that loss at Man United. Now, he can be blamed for leaving the armband with him or not getting in his head to behave better or control his emotion. That's partly the manager's job. But for Romero to do that after the ridiculous social media stuff, which I still don't understand. You know, what the hell? He should have been fined 2 weeks' wages for that and probably dropped from if they had more players fit and left if they had Danso fit. Well, just right. Because what is he actually saying there? If he's saying to the hierarchy, we haven't got enough players. I mean, is he absolutely stupid? I mean, forwards, Muani, Richarlison, Odobert, Solanke, Madison, Simons, Kudos, Kulusevski, Tell. Forget if you think they're good enough. There's loads of players. Midfield, Sarr, Gallagher, Bergvall, Gray, Bentancur, Paulinho. Now, they've got more forward options than any other team in the Prem. So what's he saying? Now, if he'd have come out and gone articulately, I think we've got to have a look at the medical staff. Or the coaching. Something's not right. The pitches. We can't have that many players injured. Something's not right here. Something's got to be looked at. Someone upstairs has got to look at what's going on with all these injured players. How can we have that many injured players? That's ridiculous. I'd go, strong, you know, but maybe he's got a point. His point, there's no substance to the out.
There's no intelligence with it, is there?
No, because they've got more players. They've got more options in forward play. They've got, I've just named 9. It's
We understand Thomas Tuchel has agreed to extend his England contract till the 2028 Euros. The German's initial deal expired this summer, and Adrian Durham reckons an extension would avoid unnecessary speculation about Tuchel's future.
If you go into the World Cup with his future not tied down, with him not knowing what he's doing straight after the World Cup, is there potential there that he could be having conversations through his agent or directly with clubs?
The Forest hierarchy have wished Sean Dyche the best of luck for the future after sacking him. talkSPORT's Max Scott has sympathy with Dyche, whose reign lasted just 114 days.
There's been a lot of chaos at the club, particularly the arrival of Edu, who spent 180 million on sort of players that have had zero impact on the first team.
Elsewhere, Pep Guardiola says Erling Haaland has a niggle. He came off at half-time during City's win over Fulham. On the red side of Manchester, Sir Jim Ratcliffe claims his unpopular choices at Man United are now paying off. He sacked 2 managers and laid off dozens of staff. And at the Winter Olympics, Ukrainian skeleton pilot Vladislav Hereskevich has been banned from competing after continuing to wear a helmet covered in pictures of athletes killed during Russia's invasion. Hereskevich says this is the price of our dignity.
Nottingham Forest, or more accurately, Evangelos Marinakis, sacked Sean Dyche. What do you make of it, Forest fans? Was it a sign of desperation, or was it indeed justified? We're going to take your calls about 1:45. 03717 223344. Simon alongside me as always. We'll talk boxing at 12. There might be a bit of boxing before that. Who knows? Let's get more on the Tottenham Hotspur situation and the Nottingham Forest situation. And my colleague, talkSPORT's chief football correspondent, Alex Crook, joins us live. Alex, good morning. What can you tell us?
Good morning. Do you know what? I was talking to the boys on breakfast. It's been an unbelievable start to 2026 in terms of managerial departures. Who'd have thought on New Year's Eve that we'd be sat here mid-February, Manchester United would have sacked Ruben Amorim, Enzo Maresca would have forced his way out of Chelsea and been fired. Tottenham would have sacked Thomas Frank. Thomas Tuchel signed a new contract as the England manager. Real Madrid have parted company with Xabi Alonso. And probably the most predictable outcome was that Nottingham Forest will be looking for their fourth manager of the season. I do think it's been an incredible turn of events on the managerial merry-go-round. I'm not surprised it's unravelled at Nottingham Forest. I've been hearing whispers for a few weeks now that Evangelos Marinakis, call him ambitious, call him hard to please, he's clearly difficult to work under, has been having severe reservations about Sean Dyche. I wrote a piece after they were hammered at Leeds at the weekend that Sean Dyche was fighting for his future. And now we know he's no longer the Nottingham Forest manager. There was some incredible scenes last night. I've heard whispers of Marinakis visibly showing his frustration in the director's box. 5 senior players summoned to that box at the City Ground to give their views on Sean Dyche and the way forward. And then Sean Dyche told around 11 o'clock last night that he was being relieved of his duties. I think I'm right in saying it's going to be the first time in Premier League history that a team have had 4 permanent managers in one season.
You're right about that. 5 senior players summoned by Marinakis, reportedly. Right, help me here. What kind of decision should I make?
Look, I mean...
You imagine you doing that.
He will be dealing with 2 things, the here and now. He will be dealing with the situation going, right, do I like the fact that I've got to go to the lunatics to see how to run this asylum? Right? But it's a here and now thing. I cannot have this club getting relegated. I cannot have it. I will not have it. And I'm not going to have it. And given the influence that he believes he has and the financial base that he's undeniably got, this is not on his wish list. So whatever he thinks about it, because he's a commercial man.
But this doesn't make them bomb-proof from relegation.
No, but he's looking around going, I don't care. Long-term future is a manager's got to manage. Right? Short-term future is these sods aren't lifting the leg. They're not doing it. There's a problem here, and I've got to get to the bottom of it. Right? And if I can't get it from the manager, let's find out what they want. What's in their stupid little minds? Okay, what's happening that you don't like? Okay, I'll deal with you later. But right now, you can't drag me down the plug hole. I can't go down the U-bend, so I'll prostitute myself. I'll sit down and listen to your crap, give you something that you want, get me out of the stuck, and I'll serve you up later on. That's what I'd be thinking.
See what you mean, Simon.
But that's honestly what I'd be thinking.
Simon, just in terms of potential successors, we're hearing in the last few minutes, and we were reporting this morning that he was a contender. They have now opened formal talks with Vitor Pereira, the former Wolves manager, so it looks like that might be the direction of travel. But I wanted to ask Simon, how much of this is down to personal pride with Marinakis? He sacked Nuno Espirito Santo. It's gone very badly since then. He looks at the league table and he sees the nightmare scenario that the manager that he fired after taking him into Europe could be the manager who sends them down and keeps West Ham up.
But I think the bigger picture is he doesn't want to get relegated out of anyone's hands. Of course, he'll be looking across at the fact that he was the architect of the departure of Nuno Espirito Santo, who's revived, exhumed West Ham from their coffin and revived them.
I can't make sense of this. Wasn't Vitor Pereira the man that was going to get Wolves relegated?
But Vitor Pereira last year was the guy that, in a very short order, breathed life into the situation at Wolves. Was the one that went down the pub and had the pint with Pereira, whatever it was, and he got them going. And he doesn't care. Marinakis will look at this and go, I don't care how I get out of this, as long as I get out of this. Because the last thing he wants, with all his power plays of what he thinks football should look like and how there should be a multi-club ownership and Olympiacos this and the power structure here and his own standing as a result of it, his own influence across the ecosystem of football, does not provide for Nottingham Forest to be in the Championship. So he will do whatever he has to do to keep them out.
And Alex, would Vitor Pereira be stopgap or would he be a permanent appointment?
Well, I think that's a really interesting question because, again, I've been reporting for several months now, maybe even back as far as last summer, the dream ticket as far as Marinakis is concerned is Marco Silva. He managed under him at Olympiacos. He led them to the league title. We know that his contract at Fulham comes to an end at the end of this season. I don't envisage a scenario whereby Marco Silva would jump ship with just 12 games of the season remaining. Is Pereira willing to come in on an interim basis, save Forest from relegation, and then hand over the reins? I think it'd be really interesting if this Pereira deal does happen to see how long the contract is that he signs.
I see some suggestions it could be Sean Dyche to Spurs. Is that really on?
I've got to say that's not a name that I've heard during the course of conversations. Never say never, as I say. It's been a crazy 6 weeks or so in the managerial world. I don't think Tottenham are looking for that firefighter type manager. I'm not sure if they really see themselves as part of the relegation picture. We were hearing yesterday they were going to sound out Roberto De Zerbi and see if he would be willing to make a quick fire return to the dugout. That Pochettino itch, I think, still needs to be scratched. I know Simon would have reservations about that, but yeah, I'm not sure it'd go down particularly well with Spurs fans if they hired Sean Dyche, because one of the big criticisms of Thomas Frank, I think not just from the fans, but from what we're hearing, and we always get these stories, don't we, after a manager's been fired about his relationship with the players, that the players didn't particularly enjoy his style of football, the fact he used to focus more on the opposition's strengths and weaknesses than he did on his own team.
It is a crazy industry, Simon, isn't it? And Alex, when he joins us, he brings us right up to date with real accuracy about everything. Alex got in touch with me yesterday saying the Tottenham players now have 5 days off and they don't play again until 11 days, what's now 10 days against Arsenal. And I noticed an awful lot of people getting in touch saying, these characters get 5 days off after their manager is sent packing? Oh, yes. That reportedly is true. And now we hear 5 senior players summoned by Marinakis. What do you think about Dyche? Really? Okay, let's pull the trigger.
But you don't listen. You need them in training because you need a manager to influence their thinking, and you need a manager to make sure that the mistakes and the things that they're doing incorrectly that's causing problems are being rectified. If you haven't got a manager, what's the point of having? They don't need to be kept fit. They're fit. And there's a case to say that sometimes a little bit of rest for them during the course of the season will revitalise them. So I don't have an issue with the players having 5 days off, despite the fact I remember years ago when I had Kit Simons and put him in as an interim manager, and I was employing Ian Dow with my mates, and he was like, "Well, where's the thanks?" I said, "Well, you were part of the bleeding players that got me in the cart in the first place. So what am I thanking you for? Because you stood in for a couple of games and won a couple of them. I've got to thank you for the position that you put me in the first place." So, with all due respect, I think you've got to mind. Take away the optics of players being out of commission for 5 days, but the 5 players being summoned to Marinakis is not the way that this is not the way big football clubs. Can you imagine Liverpool or Manchester United or Arsenal or Chelsea, the big clubs that win things, sitting down with a group of players saying, "Should we have a vox pop? What do you think?"
Alex, if it is De Zerbi for Tottenham Hotspur, in the here and now, how likely is that?
Well, I'm getting mixed messages because I was told by people close to De Zerbi that having left Marseille under a little bit of a cloud, they lost their last game 5-0 to PSG and he fell on his sword, that he would want to take a sabbatical and maybe come back recharged for the summer. But it's hard not to put 2 and 2 together and think, well, De Zerbi is available. He's someone that Tottenham flirted with before. He didn't want to go then, as we've already spoken, because he wasn't keen on working with Daniel Levy and the former sporting director, Fabio Paratici. I guess if they slap down a 3-year contract,
why would he not be keen? Just out of curiosity, if we're going to throw that out there, why would he not be keen to have worked with Daniel Levy and Paratici? What was it about them that he didn't want to work with?
At that time, he had a pretty stable job at Brighton. And they were ticking along quite nicely under the Tony Bloom model. Maybe he just felt like...
Oh, so it goes back a few years, yeah.
Yeah. This was when Ange Postecoglou was hired. Maybe he just felt that the demands that Daniel Levy put on the managers weren't necessarily realistic ambitions. And you look at the league table last season, and maybe he was right. I've got to say, I don't see De Zerbi and Tottenham as a particularly good mix. I think he's too volatile for that football club. I think he comes with an awful lot of risk attached, and he's going to put certain demands and ambitions on the owners. I guess he might be saying to them, "Well, put your money where your mouth is," because we were told, weren't we, Simon, when Daniel left the club, that there was going to be a new direction of travel. They were going to prioritise sporting success. They were going to invest in the team. Didn't really do that in January, did they? And that was a source of frustration for one Christian Romero. And De Zerbi is a manager who needs to be serviced. It all ended pretty badly for him at Brighton in the end. So I'm not sure I see that as a great fit. But as I say, he is a live contender, no question about that. And they've got to make a decision themselves. Do we bring in an interim now to steer us through until the end of the season? And who's out there to do that job? Johnny Heitinga is still on the staff, but he wasn't a particular success at Ajax. Ryan Mason is available. He messed it up at West Brom, if we're being brutally honest. And Michael Carrick, who I know they spoke to when they were looking at potential options at the turn of the year, he now has a pretty nice number at Manchester United, so the options are not limitless for Tottenham.
Alex, let's finish on Manchester United. I'm seeing a number of messages, people asking me to ask you, was Thomas Tuchel ever on United's list as a potential permanent manager post-Carrick? Because if he was, we can forget that now, can't we?
Yeah, we can, and I think he was. I think they might have hit the same roadblocks they did when they went on that beauty parade of potential managers when they were looking at getting rid of Erik ten Hag. Again, he didn't particularly want to work with Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe. What's changed? It's still the Glazers. It's still Sir Jim Ratcliffe there. Obviously, the sporting director has changed. Now it's Jason Wilcox. Before it was Dan Ashworth coming in. But I think it would have been a hard sell for Thomas Tuchel. What I do think is that maybe he's used this to his advantage, that the interest from Manchester United to secure his future with the FA, and maybe Manchester United's loss is England's gain. And I guess with Tuchel now out of the picture, there's not an endless list of top-class potential replacements. I would suggest this probably strengthens Michael Carrick's case to get the job on a full-time basis.
Alex, thanks very much indeed. So there we go. Nottingham Forest fans, Sean Dyche has been sacked by Marinakis. Was it a sign of desperation or was it indeed justified? And now we're hearing strong talk of Vitor Pereira. Would you back that? Give us a call, 03717 223344.
In the two high-profile times when I've accused anyone of racism or sexism, a High Court has agreed with me. A parliamentary committee has agreed with me. So, and I've got reams of evidence.
Oh, absolutely.
Of people,
you're talking about Mark Sampson and Joe Barton.
Right, but the point is, I'm not
but that's the extreme end of the equation, isn't it?
What is the point?
No, but
Go on,
my
Eddie.
point is, that's also replicated online. So there's reams and reams of evidence of people online.
But you did it to me. You told me. No, I don't have a problem with it because it's your opinion. You said to me about me that I'm a sexist.
No,
I don't think I am. I think I have a strident opinion. I have a daughter.
I think you pander to an audience.
Yeah, and that in itself
I think you
could be considered to be something that people would. I could be robust in my rejection of it. It's your opinion. You're entitled to it, and I like you should do. I only take the value of a people's opinion from someone whose opinion I respect.
Yeah.
Your opinion isn't relevant to me, and my opinion to some extent shouldn't be relevant to you. And if you are strong in the views that you have, I admire you for having the strength of them. But everything that you seem to portray in life seems to be that every disadvantage that you have is because either you're a woman or because you're black, and it's got nothing to do with your contribution to the equation and the way that people perceive you.
I'll always take responsibility if I think I've done something wrong. I'm the first person to apologise if I think, I shouldn't have said that or that went the wrong way. You can find multiple examples of me apologising, but there is a reality that I do suffer sometimes a disadvantage because people abuse me for my identity. They don't actually focus on, I don't think she's a good person or good pundit because of X, Y, Z. They go into attacking your identity. Those are two different things.
Thursday morning, February the 12th, Jim White and Simon Jordan live on talkSPORT, courtesy of Selco. It's where the trade goes. So, they pulled the trigger on Sean Dyche, or more relevantly, Mr. Marinakis pulled the trigger. And they'd won 2 of them. There's a big Nottingham Forest fan. Cameron, good morning. What do you want to tell us?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yes, we can hear you.
I mean, I could go on forever about him, to be honest, but, you know, people seem to like Sean Dyche, and I get it because in small doses, but, you know, when he's actually your manager, the stuff he comes out with is just unbelievable. And, like, if I was one of them players, I'd want rid of him. Like, for example, the one that really got me early doors was, second interview, he come out and started slating off Elliot Anderson, who, by the way, is, like, the first name on the team sheet for Tuchel. And then he started saying, you know, he needs to understand the nuts and the crannies. So if he's suppressing players like that from the get-go, he's got no chance. And he never blames himself, ever. In one interview, I've never heard him take accountability. There's various examples where what you can just pluck out. And I'm glad he's gone, to be honest.
I was about to say, you're not sorry to see him go. Talk of Vitor Pereira. We saw him at Wolves. What do you think?
Well, I don't know about him either. I mean, I like Marinakis. You know, you see a lot of stuff online and slating him as the mark of madman. You know, I rate him. He's done a lot for Forest, but this Pereira, I don't know.
Are you going to survive in the Premier League, Cameron?
Yeah, we'll survive. I'm glad he's gone. I think we've got more of a chance now he's gone. The players can be let off a bit. We haven't got to listen to his nonsense of him just... Right, if I had to listen to him at half time, I wouldn't get psyched up.
Okay, listen, Cameron, thanks for the call. Liam, good morning to you, big Forest fan. I was at the game at Brentford the other week and Forest won. They looked all right. So have you now got doubts as to whether or not you'll stay up, Liam?
I think we'll stay up, yeah.
Yeah. What about the sacking of Dyche?
I'm happy for it, to be honest. I would have got rid of him at Christmas.
Really?
If it was up to me,
so
yeah.
Why is this? Why? I don't get this.
Because you look at his previous managerial records, and he's not consistent. He's never consistent. He's only ever been in relegation battles with clubs. Like, how can we go and play at City and like we did at Arsenal and then lose to Wrexham in the FA Cup?
What do you think, Simon?
But you're in a relegation battle. So you can talk about what you can do in individual games. What you want is somebody that knows to get you out. Was Sean Dyche the appointment that I thought Nottingham Forest would go with? No. Do I understand the reasons why they went with Sean Dyche? Because they recognise the fact that the previous managers and the owner, the decisions that he's made have put you in a relegation battle, however much you don't like it. And Sean Dyche, to me, felt like the person that would get you past a relegation battle, give you the opportunity to survive this season, because the last thing Nottingham Forest needed or wanted was to get relegated to the Championship after spending so much time out of it and being such a great football club with such great history and with an owner that's got such big ambitions and backs it up with money. But you had a problem and you were in a relegation battle, and now you're in a real one. You're not in a relegation battle. You're not going to get relegated. If you don't get your act together and these players get their asses in gear, and let alone complaining about who they don't like listening to, you're going to get relegated, because West Ham are going to hunt you down, because they're in the groove now. They're getting points. They're winning games. They've got their confidence back.
Yeah. Rick's a big Forest fan. Rick, good morning. Where do you stand on this? Were you happy to see Dyche go, as the other two previous callers seem to be?
Hi guys. Yeah. To be honest, I've been a lifelong Forest fan for a long time. I've seen all the glory years. I met Brian Clough as a young guy. I think it's a hell of a mess, the club at the moment. Really sad to see this. I mean, you make some really good points this morning when you're chatting about lots of things. I think one thing I've never heard anybody speak about, which is quite interesting. Nobody has mentioned Edu's influence at Forest. Now, this is my own personal opinion. Since I've seen Edu coming into the club, and I've watched it all the way down through the situation where him and Nuno didn't get on. Forest have gone on the slide since he's came in. Now, you can say what you want, but he's the head of football at the club. Now, the decisions that they're making, I run a business. You cannot have success unless there's no consistency.
He was appointed last July, I think, Rick. What do you not like about him?
Yeah. Well, it's not about not. I don't like the guy, but what I'm questioning is the decisions that have been made. Now, when you look at the decisions that Simon made a good point earlier about Nuno and the players. There was a real connection between Nuno and the players, and it was fantastic. What Forest did last season was incredible, but there was a connection, and you could see it. Now, Maracana's chooses to bring Edu in. Now, as soon as that happened, that connection between the Forest players and the manager disintegrated, and then you've got all these kind of crazy decisions about bringing managers in. And you're right, Forest are really in a mess. Now, where do they go from here? I looked at Pereira's record on the internet this morning. I don't think he's had a job for more than a year in any of his clubs. It's really sad because you made the point. Forest are a fantastic club with great history. But my question is, since Edu has came into the club, he must be at the head of making decisions, football decisions, managers. Look at Forest recruitment.
Do you think? Sorry to cut across you. Do you think that Edu would have advocated for Marinakis to be gesticulating in the director's box and then summoning up 5 senior players to talk to him? I think Edu would probably have his head in his hands as a football operator, thinking, "Do you really need to do that, Mr. Chairman?" I think the Pereira appointment, just you've got to get out of trouble. And if he gives him a 2-year contract and bins him in the summer, Marinakis won't care. As long as he gets you out of trouble and away from the problems that you're in now, he won't care how he does it.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, you're right with what you're saying. I'm incredibly sad about what I'm seeing at the club.
I mean, it's survival at all cost, Rick, isn't it? Survival at all cost.
It is. I mean, you know what? I've heard you guys speaking about Cloughie in the past, and you're absolutely right. I met him when I was a young guy. He was a class act, a real class act. I met him actually, Jim, you'll laugh at this, after Forest played Celtic in 1983 at Parkhead. I met Brian Clough after the game with my dad. Brilliant. And the man was a class act.
Oh, he was.
He took me and another Celtic fan on the bus. It was incredible. And you know what? If Cloughie was alive now and he was watching what's going on at Forest, and I'm saying this as a fan, he would look at Maracana and say, "What are you doing to my club, young man? What are you doing?"
Rick, listen, thanks for the call and thanks for the many good points that you've made. Forest fans will keep across it when we know you'll know as to who goes in there next following the departure of Sean Dyche. As we come up to 11 o'clock, we're going to look at this. Sir Jim Ratcliffe claims the UK has been colonised by immigrants. He's been condemned by fan groups, anti-discrimination charities and the Prime Minister. Should he apologise? Will he apologise? We'll talk about it next.
Mo, what happened yesterday?
Candy.
What happened yesterday?
Candy, listen.
What happened?
Candy. Listen.
Mo, what happened?
Listen. We still gotta go. We still can do the double, Candy. The cups.
Now, what happened yesterday, though? What happened yesterday?
To win.
Mo, what happened yesterday?
Yes, what is on? Listen, yesterday's game, like I said, I don't want to talk about it, Candy.
No, I don't want to talk about it. No, that's what we're talking about.
What is on? Listen, we're not talking about that. We're going to talk about tomorrow's match.
No. Here's what we're talking about. What happened yesterday?
Candy.
Yep.
Candy.
Yep.
Come on, Candy.
What happened yesterday?
Candy, listen.
Yeah, what happened yesterday, man?
I've said this all the time to you, every single time. I keep repeating myself. Liverpool have been done by VAR so many times, it's unreal.
You lost 2-1.
The referee was shocking, Candy.
You lost 2-1.
And do you know what, Candy? Yesterday, it wasn't a surprise to me. It wasn't a surprise. I mean, our team turned up in the second half. We were just absolutely superb. The boys were absolutely superb.
You conceded 2 goals.
Candy. Candy, what are you on about now? Candy! 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 Candy!
Mo, you conceded two.
Listen, Jimmy G, you can't say anything, yeah? you cannot talk. You've got no room to talk.
You can't be blaming VAR, mate. You can't be blaming VAR.
I mean, Jimmy G, listen, your captain got sent off. He just done it deliberately.
More green jackets have been lost at the 12th than at the Augusta City Dry Cleaners. Rory McIlroy knows this better than most. But what is Amen Corner and why is it so iconic? The famous sequence has always been there since the Masters began in 1934. It didn't get its name until '58 though, when American sports writer Herbert Warren Wind, on the left, wrote, "At the farthest reach of the Augusta National Course, down in the Amen Corner." He drew inspiration from the 1933 jazz song Shouting in That Amen Corner by the Dorsey Brothers. The reason behind its difficulty is all in the sand and the water. Tournament officials don't even bother to count the balls lost in there each year, such is the sheer number. The 11th, named White Dogwood, is a downhill 520-yard par 4 with a pond to the left of the green and a bunker to the right. Both cause a lot of trouble each year. The 12th, Golden Bell, is perhaps the most famous hole in the world, with danger everywhere. Many aim for the flag, but look, get it even slightly wrong, and you're in the azaleas at the back, or the bunkers at the front, or even worse, Rays Creek. Or you can play it safe and aim for the open green on the left, you chicken. Tiger Woods once said, if you make 4 bogeys from Thursday to Sunday, you're doing well. And the highest ever score on that hole? 13. It's a par 3. Tom Weiskopf in 1980 was the sorry soul. Often the iconic Ben Hogan Bridge is the only thing players enjoy about Golden Bell. Even if you escape there unscathed though, you met with Azalea, the dogleg par 5 13th. It tempts players to go for the green in 2, but cut over those trees on the left at your peril. Every year, it seems, Amen Corner destroys someone's dreams. Rory McIlroy dropped 3 shots through here as his round unravelled in 2011. In 2016, a year after navigating Amen Corner expertly, Jordan Spieth shot a quadruple bogey on the 12th to throw away his green jacket. I mean, it sounds like my game, to be honest. So who'll be the next to be brought to their knees, praying for mercy after Amen Corner?
Good morning, everybody. It is Thursday morning. Jim White, Simon Jordan, and we are live on talkSPORT. As always, we're coming to you live on your TV as well. And so many of you out there have got used to the idea and we're loving it. You can watch us on Samsung, LG, Fire TV, Apple TV, Chromecast, Android, Google TV, even Prime Video. And the audience for that is rising and rising. We are thrilled to say thanks to everybody who watches the show as well as listens to it live on talkSPORT. A lot to get through. Spencer Oliver, who just popped in to say hello.
He did indeed.
And we're always happy to see him. We'll pop back in for the 12 to 1 hour when we will talk boxing. The prospect, Simon, of Daniel Dubois fighting Fabio Wardley excites me.
Good fight.
Yeah.
Good fight.
You having that?
Absolutely good fight. I think there's so much in that fight that would intrigue so many people, and two big punches. So you see someone get knocked out in that fight. If that fight is actually going to be made, which one hopes it will.
Oh, but it will. Meanwhile, the man at the top at Manchester United, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, claims the UK has been colonised by immigrants. Condemned by fan groups, anti-discrimination charities and the Prime Minister, should Sir Jim now apologise? Because how important is neutrality to the public brand and the image that you represent? Well, let's hear it. Speaking to Sky News, United's co-owner Sir Jim had this to say about the UK.
You can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK is being colonised. It's costing too much money. It will cause...
It's been colonised?
It'll cause... Well, yeah. The UK is being colonised by immigrants, really, isn't it? I mean, the population of the UK was 58 million in 2020. Now it's 70 million. That's 12 million people.
You met recently with Nigel Farage, didn't you?
I did.
Do you think that they would be a good government if they were to win the next election?
I think Nigel is an intelligent man, and I think he's got good intentions, but in a way you could say exactly the same about Keir when Keir came in. I think it needs somebody who's prepared to be unpopular for a period of time to get the big issues sorted out, would be my view.
So the key here is colonised by immigrants. Mm-hmm. Does Sir Jim need to apologise? Do we need to hear from Manchester United? Do we need to hear maybe from Gary Neville? Manchester United's co-owner Sir Jim has been condemned by fan groups, as I said, but he's been widely condemned. Keir Starmer, it's offensive and wrong. Britain is a proud, tolerant and diverse country. Sir Jim should apologise. Ed Davey, leader of the Liberal Democrats, totally wrong, totally out of step with British values. He should apologise now. Even the Manchester United Supporters Trust. Manchester United belongs to all of its supporters. No fan should feel excluded from following or supporting the club because of race, religion, nationality or background. So Simon,
he didn't say any of that.
Well, let me put this to you. If you're going to make an argument, surely you get your numbers right.
Yeah.
So that would help. So his take is flawed right from the start.
Yep.
The population of the UK was 58 million in 2020. Now it's 70 million. That's 12 million people. That's according to Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Now it's 70 million. Before it was 58. That's 12 million people.
Yeah.
He's listing the population in 2020 with the number from the year 2000.
Yeah, those numbers wrong.
So the Office of National Statistics estimates that the population of the UK was 67 million in mid-2020 and 70 million in mid-2024.
Yeah, he's got his numbers wrong.
So that's 3 million of a difference, not 12 million. So we need to put Sir Jim right about that.
Yeah.
He talks about economic strain in the UK. This is Ratcliffe, one of Britain's richest men, who moved his primary residence to the tax haven of Monaco in 2020. United's website, meantime, celebrates the fact that Manchester is a city famed for its embrace of immigrants. Mm-hmm. So tell me, after you've heard Sir Jim talking on Sky News, what's your reaction?
So let's pare this back a little bit. I think the term of colonisation is probably clumsy. But if you look at the underlying sentiment, put aside the analysis that he's misquoted some figures. Because the population in 2000 was 58 million. The population in the UK is 70 million in 2025, which means we've had a 21% increase, 20 to 21% increase in our population. The population of Europe has gone from 728 million to 744 million, which means Europe as a continent has had a 2% increase in population. You then distill down the German population increase, the Italian, the Spanish, the French. No one has had a population explosion like we have. So to go to the sentiment about the population, irrespective of whether he said 2020 or 2000, he is right. The population explosion, however it's manifested itself, has created a strain on this country. Then you go to the sentiment of the open border policy that various governments have deployed in regards to people coming into this country, and you look at that and see the challenge. So he's not wrong to say 9 million people on benefits on the welfare state is a challenge for this country. He's not wrong to say that foreign-born residents of this country make up a disproportionate amount of people on benefits in this country. He's also, if you look at his history, and I'm not defending some of the things he said because I think colonisation is a strong terminology, but you could ask certain people around this country.
It's a wrong terminology.
You could ask certain people around this country that might hold that view. If you went to towns like Bedford or to Luton, if you went to the towns surrounding Aston Villa Stadium, where a particular community decided that an Israeli football club weren't to come to that particular stadium.
On, one of the many brilliant things you do well in this show is your choice of words. And I'm not buttering you up, but that's why people love you. The way you express yourself, and people identify with you on that.
Yeah.
The choice of the word colonisation. Hang on. Up his words here.
But you haven't let me finish my point.
Settling and establishing control over the indigenous people of an area.
But you haven't let me finish my point. What I said, there were certain people. First of all, he's not a politician. Second of all, Keir Starmer is a snivelling coward, because Keir Starmer said in his speech at this time last year, this is a country full of strangers. Right, which people then index back to the Enoch Powell speech, right? And because there was political capital or political shrapnel in that, he pared back from that conversation and apologised for it.
Let's talk about
Jim Ratcliffe. Jim Ratcliffe is not a politician.
He's not a politician.
So he doesn't need to apologise.
Why is he offering this up?
Because he gave an interview and someone asked him a question about the state of the country.
He's the face of Manchester United.
No, he's a shareholder in Manchester United.
Simon.
He's a shareholder in Manchester United.
He's the face of Manchester United.
Well, that's your view.
We don't hear from the Glazers. But we hear from Sir Jim,
and I think that if you
and on this instance,
what we're doing with what we're doing,
way out
what we're
of
doing
line.
with Jim Ratcliffe, right, is we're playing the man and not the points. Move past the colonisation argument and say clumsy.
You can't move past that.
Yes, you can, because it's clumsy language.
That's the point.
Yes, you can, because it's clumsy language.
But that's his main point.
But look at the underlying assertions that he makes. Look at the underlying assertions. Do we subscribe to the view that this country's increase in population as a complete outlier against the rest of Europe is something that is working well for this country? No, it's not. Do we subscribe to the view that ultimately 9 million people being unemployed or being on benefits of some shape or description on the welfare state, and a significant proportion of that being foreign residents that now live in this country, is something that we should continue to support? No, I don't think we should. If we look at Jim Ratcliffe's track record, by the way, Jim Ratcliffe up until 2017, 2018 was the third highest individual taxpayer in this country. And I think he's entitled, with due respect, to decide whether he wants to continue to be domiciled in this country and where he wants his tax dollars to be spent.
I don't disagree.
If he disagrees fundamentally,
his words crucially wrong here.
I think it's a clumsy word. But the underlying
immigration isn't colonisation.
But the underlying message and the underlying sentiments, and we can zero in on the colonisation side of things. And I make the point again, right? If you walk around certain parts of this country and you look at certain towns, and I use the Aston Villa example as a particular case in point, where we have a particular community that in part wants to have Sharia law in this country, that in part decided that Israelis and Jews were not permitted to go into that particular part of the country, there is an argument that some people would make, not necessarily me, that looks like a form of colonisation. Now, I wouldn't use those terminologies, and I don't think Jim Ratcliffe should have done.
You mentioned Sharia law. It doesn't operate as a parallel legal system in the UK, has no binding legal jurisdiction according to the Home Office.
Certain communities,
British law always takes precedence in cases of conflict.
Certain communities would like that to
But it's important to fact-check that.
I said certain communities would like it. I didn't say they're doing it. Certain communities would also like to have first-cousin marriage seeded into law in this country, and are arguing it through political environments.
Someone like the Mayor of Manchester, Andy Burnham.
To a point.
Calling for curbs on levels of immigration is one thing. Portraying those who come here as a hostile invading force is quite another. It is inaccurate, insulting, inflammatory, and should be withdrawn.
But that's the.
Should he withdraw the word
I think
that he used?
I think that's for Jim.
Colonisation.
I think that's for Jim Ratcliffe.
Do you think he should withdraw it?
I think it's clumsy language.
Would that be a sensible move?
I don't think he's a politician. I don't think he has to account for his words in the same way that other people have to.
Is it more than clumsy?
I think he said what he felt.
Is it divisive?
And I think that ultimately, if you feel
is it divisive and inflammatory?
Well, it depends who wants to take offence at it.
Everyone's taking offence at it.
I haven't taken offence at it. I don't look at it and say, well, what Jim Ratcliffe says is something that I need to abide by, and it determines my thought process about the world that we live in. I look at the underlying sentiments of what he's saying, because we're now playing the man, and rather than the underlying arguments. The colonisation side of things is a certain type of language that potentially people can really challenge and get offended by.
Yeah, because it's right. Because
So when you've got the Prime Minister of this country turning around and saying this is a nation of strangers, right? That's not something people should be troubled by.
That's the Prime Minister.
But they were troubled, but he's a politician.
But this is Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the co-owner of Manchester
Jim Ratcliffe
United.
is talking about making unpopular decisions in life. And what people are then doing is weaponising it and saying, well, he made all these... Look at how unpopular he is at Man United because he made all these cuts. Look how he behaves himself at Manchester United. Nothing to do with the fact that the business probably needed some of this. What Ratcliffe was saying, in a slightly clumsy way, and I accept that...
Slightly clumsy?
No, I'm not talking about the colonisation.
The colonisation thing.
I'm not going to dwell all my time on a colonisation.
It's a monumental mistake in his part because he got the choice of words so badly wrong.
Okay, so with due respect to the scenarios surrounding...
He's got to apologise for it.
To whom?
Do you know what? He complains the UK has been colonised by immigrants. Yeah. United's own website embraces Manchester, a city famed for its embrace of immigrants. The Premier League website celebrates how it's become a league of nations on the pitch.
But the central argument...
This goes right against what Sir Jim has said on Sky.
I mean, I saw arguments like that. I saw the argument saying, well, you wouldn't have a team.
He's the face of
You
Manchester
wouldn't have a
United.
team if you didn't have immigrants. Well, look, hang on a second. These are highly paid footballers that are contributing to society and paying their way in society. We're not talking about people that are coming into this country that are ultimately sitting, to some extent, a large proportion of foreign-born residents of this country are sitting within the benefit system. And it's universally accepted that the welfare state cannot continue with the immigration policy of this country. It doesn't work. Our National Health Service doesn't work. Our roads don't work. Our infrastructure doesn't work. And in part, it's because of a population explosion. Now, what we're doing is we're zeroing in on the fact that he used the word colonisation and ignoring the principles of what he's saying is sometimes, I haven't finished, Jim, sometimes in life you have to make unpopular decisions. Keir Starmer recognised the fact that the welfare state needed to be changed.
You're talking about Keir Starmer an awful lot.
Because Keir Starmer is the one that's led the charge.
We're talking about Sir Jim Ratcliffe.
Keir Starmer is the one that's led the charge demanding an apology. That's why I'm using Keir Starmer's reference.
But he's a politician.
And the reasons why he apologises is because he's a coward and can't take the hate of what he said.
Jim's men's squad alone relies on overseas talent featuring more than a dozen different nationalities.
What's that got to do with anything? These are highly paid footballers that aren't coming into this society in part not contributing to it. They're paying enormous amounts of tax dollars into society. People will also argue that if Jim Ratcliffe is so concerned, by the way, about the well-being of this country, he wouldn't have closed Grangemouth and put thousands of people out of work, and ultimately cost implications of that and the benefit system that these people now find themselves on. So there's a raft of arguments that you can throw at Jim Ratcliffe, but the underlying sentiment about immigration in this country and questioning immigration policies and questioning what's happening in this country doesn't lead you to a vilification of immigration.
You can question it, Simon, but unlike him, it's best not to use divisive language. And that's what he has done here.
Well, in your opinion...
Are you a Manchester United fan from an immigrant background residing in this country? How do you feel this morning? Perhaps you're the son or the daughter of an immigrant where your parents came to this country to settle, and you wear a Manchester United shirt with pride, maybe home and away, when you follow United. How do you feel this morning? Perhaps you're from an immigrant background, but you're part of the workforce at Manchester United. You work there at Old Trafford, maybe on a minimum wage. How do you feel this morning? Manchester United fans as a whole, what do you make of your owner's comments? How damaging are they? 03717 223344.
legendary retired referee Dermot Gallagher joins us here on the show. How are we, Dermot?
Hi, Majestic. Hi, Al.
Hi, Dermot. Listen, let's just get your thoughts off that straight off the bat. We don't want to ask you no questions. You're the ref. Tell us what you saw.
I have to say, I get what Alan says, and I think lots and lots of people will say, give the goal. It keeps 11 against 11. It keeps everybody happy. But when you look at it, there's no doubt whatsoever Szoboszlai is fouled. And by Haaland fouling him, he will argue that stopped him clearing the ball off the line. But you go back, the only reason Szoboszlai gets that far back is because he actually hauls Haaland back. That's the first foul. So I don't think I think Craig has tried to play advantage because he thinks it'll be a goal.
Definitely, Dermot. He's played advantage, isn't he?
Yeah, he's played advantage, and bear in mind, Al, that he can always bring that back if it goes wrong. So
but if you go to the second part, right, where Haaland fouls him, right, but the ball's gone in the net. So why didn't he play advantage there as well?
Well, he can't play an advantage for foul on Szoboszlai, can he? Because if the ball's in the net, the game, it's terminated, isn't it? That moves over. But if you actually look, that ball's not in the net when he pulls Szoboszlai back. And the problem there, Al, is that
but don't you think he see that, Dermot? Don't you think he see the first incident, right? And he's played on. Yeah. He's seen the second incident. He must have seen it. It was fairly obvious. And he still give a goal. That was the on-field decision, wasn't it?
The on-field decision was goal. That's correct. So all I can presume is he hasn't picked up the foul on Szoboszlai.
No, I don't see that. I think what's happened is VAR or the official in the VAR room has picked up the second.
Massive reaction to this, as you might expect. The wording used by Sir Jim Ratcliffe in an interview with Sky News. Britain has been colonised by immigrants who are costing too much money, according to Sir Jim, who of course is the co-owner of Manchester United. He founded the global chemicals company Ineos Group. He blamed the poor economy on immigration and the large number of people claiming benefits. He said political leaders must do some difficult things with the UK to get it back on track. And Simon is saying in the background there, and he would be right. But it's a use of his wording here, which has offended many people. And this is where much of the furore post the interview is coming from. The definition of colonisation. Colonisation. Settling and establishing control over the indigenous people of an area. Immigration, Simon, isn't colonisation. And that's what we're trying to point out. That Sir Jim might have been trying to make a point, and many people would go along with the point that he's making. But the wording that he's used is way out of line.
We're being distracted.
To many
we are being distracted by the word rather than the premise of what he's actually saying.
But you can't not be distracted by the word.
Well, we can be, because we can focus on the premise of what he's really saying rather than allowing ourselves to be distracted by it. And by the same token, he lives in a country where he has freedom of speech. He doesn't have to apologise if he doesn't want to. He's entitled to say what he thinks. So I don't think he should apologise. If he wants to apologise, that's up for Jim Ratcliffe. But unlike other people, like the Prime Minister of this country, perhaps he has the courage of his convictions.
But you don't like it when politics and sport seem to mix, but you don't mind it when it's your politics.
But he's not. No, that's not true at all, because he voted Labour. So what are we talking about?
Who did?
Jim Ratcliffe. In the last election, he voted for Labour. So it's not about politics. It's about good opinions. I believe in good opinions, and I believe in good people. I don't vote for particular persuasions. I vote for good policies and good people. I voted for Tony Blair once upon a time. I voted for Conservatives. I vote for what I think people can do a good job in.
Do you think Premier League owners, like Sir Jim, should be politically out there in the public eye?
Why did he give up his right for free speech when he bought a football club?
I'm not saying he shouldn't, but I'm asking you, do you think it's a wise thing to do? Because he got his wording wrong, Simon. Whether we like it or not, whether you like it or not, his choice of words has landed him in headline news not of a good sort. And you would have gone through an interview with Sky News yesterday and thought about every word you're going to use, because that's what you do.
No, not necessarily. And I say things that I think back on. Sometimes I think I have regret about saying them. But the fact of the matter is, politicians are weaponising this content and using it for their own end, right? But the reality is the premise of what he's saying is fundamentally correct. We have a welfare state which has 9 million people on it, which cannot continue. We have an immigration policy which is not working. And we have a societal change and shift at pace and demographics, which is changing the face of this country, and people don't like it. And the politicians are too cowardly to do anything about it. And Keir Starmer and the other politicians like Ed Davey are just weaponising this content because it deflects from their inadequacies and ineptitude.
But you like Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester.
Not particularly. I don't agree with his politics.
Insulting, inflammatory, and should be withdrawn.
Yeah, but Andy Burnham
many people get in touch.
Andy Burnham runs with whichever particular policy gets him the most currency.
David's a Manchester City fan. What do you make from the fellow across the city, from what you're hearing? What do you make of it, David? Good morning.
Hi, the reason I'm calling is because I listen most mornings when I'm working, and I agree with Simon. There's lots and lots of things. And the reason I'm calling is I live literally 5 minutes from the ground. I know people who work at Old Trafford, who have worked there for years. I've taught in Manchester, families, children in Manchester for 20-odd years. And the reason I'm calling is that I'm phoning as a 50-year-old white man and listening to white men talking about how they perceive what they use has no impact on ethnic groups in this country. And I am a huge fan of Simon, but Jim Ratcliffe yesterday was an absolute disgrace. And I'm going to tell Simon why it's an absolute disgrace. He said about colonisation. Simon's an educated man. Just Google what colonisation, the definition of colonisation means. And if he doesn't know what it means, it's the process of a foreign power establishing control over a territory and its people, often leading to significant social, economic and cultural transactions based in Africa, practice of historical roots. And it relates to themes.
But why are you quoting this to me? Because I've already said this is. But why are you quoting this to me? Because it's not a word I said.
Let David finish.
But I don't need a lecture from a dictionary, do I?
Simon, I'm going to listen. I've listened to you, and I listen to you every morning. So at least have the courtesy to listen.
Well, I can read a dictionary.
No. Please listen, because you're just being rude.
Well, because I don't want to listen to you read out of a dictionary.
Well, do you know what? Well, maybe if you did listen, you'd have a different idea.
But I don't agree with the word. I've never said. I've made the point repeatedly. I wouldn't use this word.
Let me just explain to you why. Because you circumnavigate around the whole thing. That word is for crooks. He was on a Sky Business programme yesterday, and he was talking about his business. And when he used that word, that wasn't by accident, that was by choice. It's a political choice. And no doubt he will be making some kind of political donation or whatever, whether it's to Reform or whatever group he's going to be part of. But that word was a deliberate choice.
I'm not sure. I have to say, I'm not sure it is. I'm not sure it is.
Simon, I watched the interview. I watched it live. And I saw him speak. And he made the excuses of Man United. He blamed everybody else. It was all everybody else's fault, apart from his. But you said about him making tough decisions. I know people who were fired from Old Trafford because he came in and made all those choices. And do you know what? I would love him this weekend. It's FA Cup weekend, but the next home game, go onto the terraces and speak to those people who save their money up, who have got immigrant backgrounds, who have got parents who have clean the toilets in Old Trafford, who sacrifice so much money to go and watch them. Get him to come down and tell them that they are taking money off his rich friends and rich families. If he came on the terraces and said that, instead of sitting in a nice cosy studio or back in Monaco, I wouldn't have any respect for him, but at least he did it. But he would not. He would not. And do you know what, Simon? I've listened to you for years. I have so much respect because you talk about football really well. But do you know what? You would never have gone into Crystal Palace terraces and stood there next to fans and as much as you say about fans paying money, you would never say that to their face.
David, do you think Sir Jim Ratcliffe should apologise for his choice of words, the wrong choice of words?
I think he should apologise to all those people in Manchester who are and internationally, because United, I'm not a United fan, but I respect them as a club. Their foundation, when they go to Asia on tours, it's all about immigration. Manchester is built on immigration. I'm speaking as a white 55-year-old man, and I am embarrassed.
David, thank you for the time you've taken. Thank you for the call you've given us. It's 11:30. Stay with us. More calls after this. Did you think that the Super Bowl would get such a thumping up against the Premier League offering of Liverpool, Manchester City? I thought it would be much, much closer. You're talking about a difference of 500 million.
You are. But you're talking about, I've had this argument with Brian T. Smith, who comes in, who I very much like, and makes the case that the Champions League final, I'd say, dwarfs the Super Bowl, and he makes his argument about scale. It makes my argument. Of course it makes my argument. But then you have to look back underneath it and say, this is a worldwide global audience that's watching the Premier League, watching arguably the biggest game in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And you've got multitude of broadcast deals around the world for a global sport. Ostensibly, despite inroads into various countries where you've had the NFL on tour and it's made its way into Germany and it's made its way into Poland and it's made its way into the UK, it's a North American sport. And so I'd be fascinated to see, outside of the North American broadcasting numbers, how many of the 220 million people that watched it were outside of North America.
Yeah.
Because I'm willing to wager you that clearly it's obvious because the population of this country is only 70 million, that 90%, 95% of the people that watched the Premier League game between Liverpool and Man City was around the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And when the NFL gets its act together, which it's trying to do, and makes this a global sport, and makes it a participation sport and a viewing sport in all the four-flung corners of the globe, it'll have numbers that are substantial. And 220 million people watching it, if I'm right in my thinking, 90% of that will be in North America. That's 50% of the population of America, North America, watching a sports contest.
We understand Thomas Tuchel has agreed to extend his England contract till the 2028 Euros. The German's initial deal expired this summer, and Adrian Durham reckons an extension would avoid unnecessary speculation about Tuchel's future.
If you go into the World Cup with his future not tied down, with him not knowing what he's doing straight after the World Cup, is there potential there that he could be having conversations through his agent or directly with clubs?
The Forest hierarchy have wished Sean Dyche the best of luck for the future after sacking him. talkSPORT's Max Scott has sympathy with Dyche, whose reign lasted just 114 days.
There's been a lot of chaos at the club, particularly the arrival of Edu, who spent 180 million on sort of players that have had zero impact on the first team.
Elsewhere, Pep Guardiola says Erling Haaland has a niggle. He came off at half-time during City's win over Fulham. On the red side of Manchester, Sir Jim Ratcliffe claims his unpopular choices at Man United are now paying off. He sacked 2 managers and laid off dozens of staff. And at the Winter Olympics, Ukrainian skeleton pilot Vladislav Hereskevich has been banned from competing after continuing to wear a helmet covered in pictures of athletes killed during Russia's invasion. Hereskevich says this is the price of our dignity.
Good morning, everybody. Just gone 11:30 this Thursday morning. Spencer Oliver will be in studio, Simon and I, at 12 noon as we will talk boxing. The boxing hasn't quite started early, but we're not far off it. No, I'm joking. We are reacting to the interview that Sir Jim Ratcliffe, co-owner of Manchester United, has given Sky News. And amidst that interview, he said, amongst other things, you can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. The UK has been colonised by immigrants. Really, hasn't it? And that sparked something of a backlash, not least the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, saying Sir Jim Ratcliffe should apologise. Andy Burnham, you heard there in Emma's News Bulletin, he's joined the debate as well, calling for curbs and levels of immigration, says Andy, is one thing. Portraying those who come here as a hostile invading force is quite another. It's inaccurate, insulting, inflammatory, and should be withdrawn. So Sir Jim Ratcliffe saying this, should Premier League owners be politically out there in the public eye? And many of you are reacting as Simon has done this morning. Ian's a Manchester United fan. Ian, good morning. How do you react to what Sir Jim has said?
Good morning. Can you hear me, sorry?
Yes, Ian.
Excellent. First and foremost, I just want to say a massive thanks for getting me on. But also, you guys, I listen to you literally every single morning. And yeah, you put on a good show every day. Now,
thanks, Ian.
So,
there's a buck coming, is there?
No, today is actually it's a very important topic, I think. So I absolutely, and I know this is cliche. Most people that come on the program say, "Oh, I agree with Simon," but I genuinely do this time. So to give you a bit of background, I am from an immigrant family. I'm 30 years old, and I live in Manchester, and I support Manchester United. Now, I support everything, well, not everything, but most things that Jim Ratcliffe said. Maybe the language that he used wasn't very clever, but I fully agree, and I know people in the same kind of camp as I am, which is, it may be, the word.
What do you agree with? What do you agree with?
But I strongly agree with the fact that you absolutely cannot have a sustainable economy with 9 or so million people sitting on benefits, and most of those people are from an immigrant background. It's just not fair. It's not fair. It's not sustainable. There is a huge influx of immigrants that have come into the UK, and I think the point that maybe Sir Jim Ratcliffe was trying to point across was he's not talking about some of the immigrant players or the immigrant workers that play at United or at any of the clubs or that work in any industry that you can think of. I think what he's talking about are the immigrants that come and basically sit on their hands, and it's not fair because I've seen people online saying, wait, isn't it immigrant as well? He's moved to Monaco. And I'm thinking, yes, he's moved to Monaco, but he contributes to the Monaco economy. He doesn't go there and just sit there. He's not hiding away. Yes, he's taking his billions away. Fair enough. If I had billions and I was looking around the UK and thinking, hang on, I'm paying all this tax. Where is actually all my tax money going? I would be tempted to say, hang on, I can move abroad somewhere else where I can pay A, lower tax, and B, I can see where my money is actually going.
Yeah, but Ian, just to be clear, you have no problem as a Manchester United supporter with what Sir Jim has said.
I agree with the message behind what he's trying to say.
So why is he being condemned by fan groups and discrimination charities and politicians?
I think that comes from this day and age now where we live in a society where a lot of people are very easily offended, and it's a very virtue signaling, enabling society where, before anything, let's focus on, that particular word that is said, or, he's definitely misquoted that number. It should be this number instead of that number. Yes, he might have misquoted the number. Yes, he might have used language that is not very clever. But at the end of the day, the bottom line is the country is not in a good place. And a lot of people agree with him. And I agree with him.
You've had plenty of airtime, and we thank you for the call. Abzar is another Manchester United fan. Do you agree with Ian, the previous caller, Abzar?
Hi, Simon. Yeah, how are you? Nice to be able to be on air with both of you.
Thank you.
Real sir should be you, Sir Jim White, and not Sir Jim Ratcliffe. I totally disagree with the person that rang before. I'm a first-generation immigrant. My dad came here. He was used to work at the steel factory. I'm here. My wife works. I work. We pay taxes. How would I be perceived in Jim Ratcliffe's face when he says we're colonized? The immigration is a big problem, and we're colonizing all of England. Would he refuse to take my money? Would he refuse to take my kids' money when we go to watch the football? Majority of the squad is a foreign-based squad. And I feel as though he's using this platform because he defected from Labour to Reform. And I feel as though he's using that to support Nigel Farage and Reform. At the same time, I feel as though there's been a fallout between the grants that he was applying for the rebuilding the stadium. If he's that clever, he should also point out that there are genuine people, and he's using the phrase immigration. And the benefits. I feel he's wrong when he says immigration is a problem, because majority of the people, does he know, are they all immigrants on benefit?
So Abzar, specifically, you think he's wrong when he says the UK has been colonised by immigrants, hasn't it? You think that's wrong?
100%. 100%. I mean, if he looks back, at the population itself, majority is not immigration.
Do you think his comments reflect badly on his football club?
It's reflecting badly. I'm a passionate supporter. I rang in before, remember, about David De Gea issue and everything. I'm a passionate supporter. My kids are passionate United supporters. To be honest, I feel offended by this. It's actually stereotyping me. I'm an immigrant, like I said, even though I was here from the age of 4. I work hard. My wife works. I work. We pay our taxes.
Simon, what would you say to Abzar as we head to the break? Abzar, here's Simon.
Well, first and foremost, I have at no point is it my job to defend Jim Ratcliffe. My job is to defend Jim Ratcliffe's right to have an opinion, because I think that's entirely appropriate. And that's why I don't necessarily think that Jim Ratcliffe should be apologising. I think the language that he uses is not language that I would use. So I'm not defending his words, I'm defending his right to have them said. What Jim Ratcliffe is really referring to...
Do you feel as though he's taking a political stance here?
No, I don't think he has. I think that ultimately he's talking at a business conference. He's talking about the state of the country. It's undeniable that having 9 million people on welfare state cannot be supported. It's undeniable that a significant...
Simon, the immigration issue is getting looked at. It has been looked at for the last 5 years.
But we can't even control people coming into our shores on boats. We've had a population explosion over the last 25 years, which is completely out of kilter with Europe. We've got a country that's falling. We've got a country that's falling apart at the seams. So I think his central premise is right. I think the language being used, he is not talking about immigrants per se. He's talking about particular immigrant that comes to this country that isn't actually a net contributor. You're a net contributor. So the language that he uses
doesn't say that.
allows him to be interpreted in a certain way, and that's his fault.
Abzar, if you could speak to St. Jim through us, live in Talk Sport, what would you say to him?
I would say he needs to have a good think about what he's saying, because immigration is a big subject. I'm an immigrant, but am I seen perceived to him as a wrong immigrant? He needs to clarify what does he mean by colonization. And he needs to be more clear and transparent. He has many supporters, 70,000 supporters every week going to watch Old Trafford United. Has he realised amongst them are immigrants as well?
Abzar, thanks so much for the call. I want to thank everybody for your calls. We couldn't in any way get even close to speaking to everyone who was calling in. But thank you so much for your calls. And we will see where it goes from here, because Starmer wants Sir Jim to apologise. So does Ed Davey and a bunch of other people. Will he? Who knows? But we'll keep across it.
Your boys took with a hell of a beating on the Glasner. Wilfred Zaha, Ian Imo. Can you me Imo? Your boys took with a hell of a beat. The signs leads me behind Selhurst Park. Mark Gay, Eddie the Eagle, Pards. Can you me Pards? Your boys took with a hell of a beating. Jaffe in between us. South Croydon train station. Brighty, Salako. Can you me Eagles? Your boys took with a hell of a beating.
Tons of Premier League action to get through tonight, all live across the talkSPORT network. Liverpool have just become the first team to win the Stadium of Light this season. The quad is on. Palace absolute shambles. They've just thrown away a massive 3 points against Burnley. There's one win in 14 games. Wow, ridiculous from Glasner. Forest had to win tonight, and they didn't. Informed West Ham just 3 points behind you. You must be worried. Could Sean Dyche get the sack? Man City get the pressure up on Arsenal. Big win for them. Phil Foden, though, probably should have got sent off. Thomas Frank is gone. Finally, Spurs have 11 days now to prepare to stop Arsenal's title challenge. Who comes in? Get involved in the show. 03 717 22 33 44.
What is on?
Hello, mate.
Yo.
How are you?
I'm all right, matey. Your club disgracing the Premier League again.
Well,
honestly,
let's not go.
You lot. It's just, mate, honestly, it's like, but it's a bunch of clowns.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. We're ready for the action. Are you? Visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app. 18 plus. GambleAware.org.
It's that time. We're joined by Sean Martin from BetMGM. We're going to look at the latest sporting events and the odds round and about them. Sean, good morning to you. What about the latest on the next manager markets after the recent changes in recent days? Tottenham Hotspur being one, and more recently, overnight, Nottingham Forest. Morning.
Morning, lads. Yeah, 2 managers in 2 days. Sean Dyche out at Forest following Thomas Frank leaving Spurs yesterday. Roberto De Zerbi still 13 to 20 favourite for the Tottenham job, so no movement there to speak of, really. Forest now looking for their 4th manager of the season, and that person will come into a club 3 points off the drop zone and 5 to 2 to go down in that final relegation spot behind West Ham at 4 to 5 in the market there. In terms of the names out there in the market, former Wolves boss Vitor Pereira, currently heavy favourite for the job, 6 to 1 on, so really quite heavy favourite. Obviously, it didn't end great at Molineux for him, but his initial impact was undoubted. If you remember back to last season, he took over a team 19th in December. I think he won 10 of the next 18, secured safety, so it could be that kind of impact that Forest are looking for with him here. A bit of a gap back to the next few names. Ruben Amorim, 6 to 1 alongside Thomas Frank if he fancies going the Ange Postecoglou route of Spurs to Forest. It's 8 to 1 for De Zerbi and Enzo Maresca. Gary Rowett is at 10s after being let go from Oxford United in December. Other names there include Robbie Keane, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Ralph Hasenhüttl at 12s. Then you've got the likes of Will Still, also 12 to 1, and Russell Martin, 14s. I think he's touched on Pereira slightly earlier, lads, but what about the other names mentioned there? Any inspire at all? And if it is to be Pereira, how big a risk is that, banking on the same initial impact they had at Wolves and almost ignoring the way that it ended?
Well, Simon, Sean's thrown a bunch of names at us, and I noticed you didn't flinch when you heard Ralph Hasenhüttl being thrown into the equation as well. What do both of these clubs need at the moment? They need someone to go in there and steady the ship, whether it's on an interim basis or on a permanent basis. And there are, I don't care what anyone says, plenty of individuals out there.
Yeah,
to choose from.
I personally think, irrespective of the proximity of Tottenham's current position, that they will not get relegated. And I know that that's like a wing and a prayer statement, and I understand why people can drive a bus through it. Just my nose tells me that there's enough about that Tottenham squad that you put somebody in there that can just hold some sort of order and they'll get through this season. I'm not sure it's the same at Nottingham Forest.
Right.
Because I just got a feeling that Nottingham Forest, when you start bringing players into the mix and asking players to contribute to the outcome and to the equation and starting to evaluate their opinions, you know, there's something rotten in the state of Denmark.
So would it be a permanent appointment at Tottenham and an interim at Forest, the way you look at it?
I don't know. Honestly, it depends what candidates are out there and who they think is best. I mean, ultimately, Tottenham Hotspur have got a European campaign to wage. They're in the Champions League. And to some extent, Nottingham Forest are still in the Europa League. Ironically, both of these two sides, these two quite magnificent football clubs in different ways, have got a ridiculous embarrassment of riches on one column and a horrible debit column that looks like it could suck them down a drain plug of the relegation battle.
Right.
But again, I mean, my nose tells me that Tottenham will find their way through this. The Forest situation slightly worries me a bit more. Insofar I'm worried about either, but it's also predicated upon West Ham keeping up this momentum.
Okay, so we've got Brentford tonight under Keith Andrews. They're happy. And Arsenal very happy with Mikel Arteta. It's a talkSPORT exclusive. What are you thinking tonight, Sean?
Yeah, Brentford 9 to 2 to beat Arsenal at home, and the draw just under 3 to 1. They've only lost 2 of their 12 home league games this term, and a win would put them level on points with Liverpool, albeit they're still 6 to 1 to Liverpool's 3 to 10 to make the top 5. Last time they played Arsenal, we had a wee look earlier on. They lost 2-0, but they did so without Jordan Henderson, Igor Thiago, Keane Lewis Potter, and Mikael Damsgaard. If they're full strength tonight, they could give the league leaders a game, lads. That said, Arsenal, obviously, league leaders still 13 to 20 favourites and not lost to Brentford in 8 meetings. Although a quirky wee stat I read earlier says Arsenal not won or even scored in any of their last 3 league games on a Thursday, Jim. So potentially without Saka and Odegaard again, I don't know, maybe the title race does open up a bit again tonight.
It's a test tonight of Arsenal's bottle, though, isn't it? That's the way many people will be thinking if they are to put some kind of a bet on the game between Brentford and Arsenal, because Man City swept past Fulham last night and it's back down to 3.
That's the thing. It is back down to 3 points. If Arsenal then give up the chance to go back 6 clear again tonight, let's see what the odds are like tomorrow morning. That's what I'd say.
Well done, Sean. Premier League darts, BetMGM, Premier League darts, night 2 in Antwerp in Belgium. You didn't get to make the trip to Antwerp, Sean. They kept you at home.
No, not quite, no, but I'll be making the trip up the road to Glasgow next week, I think. So
good man.
Yeah, night 2 tonight. It's a historic one, Jim, because it's the first time the BetMGM Premier League has ever had a night in Belgium. Set up camp in Antwerp, as you say, and it's notably a 6 p.m. start tonight UK time. So if folk are looking to tune in or get their bet builders on, etc., a bit of a public service announcement there. Plenty more. I said that last week. Plenty more Premier League darts info and features and stuff on our hub on the website as well. Well worth a visit. In terms of the action tonight, though, no bigger a blockbuster tie in darts at the moment than Luke v Luke. Littler against Humphreys. That kicks off the night. Both fell early last week. One now guaranteed to go out at the first hurdle this week as well. Littler 13-8 favourite to win the night, regardless of that being the draw. The winner of that tie plays either Van Gerwen or Josh Rock. MVG obviously won in Newcastle last week. He's 7-1 to go back-to-back tonight. The other half of the draw, Johnny Clayton against Stephen Bunting. A good chance for either of them to have a run. And last up, Gerben Price against Jan van Veen. Van Veen is the favourite for that at 4-5, but I've got to mention Gerben Price midweek, Jim, on the floor, absolutely sensational. Whitewashed Michael van Gerwen 6-0, averaged 117. I honestly don't know if that type of thing has happened to MVG before. Price, even money to carry that over into tonight and beat Van Veen, and maybe worth a look, 6-1 to win the night overall, because anyone in that half doesn't meet Luke or MVG until the final, remember.
Brilliant. Sean, superb job. Thank you very much indeed. Sean Martin with us live. Visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app. 18 plus, begambleaware.org.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Keep things golden with responsible play at betmgm.co.uk. 18 plus, gambleaware.org.
talkSPORT Sports Update, powered by the Nissan van range. Scoring a winning hat-trick of performance, payload and price. Search Nissan vans or head to your local Nissan van centre.
I think it takes away the uncertainty.
With your headlines at 2 minutes past 12, I'm Nick Ellaby. Good afternoon. Thomas Tuchel says he didn't hesitate to extend his contract with England till after the 2028 Euros. Our chief football correspondent Alex Crook approves of the FA's move.
I think it takes away the uncertainty. Thomas Tuchel can focus now on trying to win the World Cup, but it's no longer the be-all and end-all. He won't be judged solely on what happens in North America in the summer.
Tuchel's assistants Anthony Barry, Enrique Hilario, Nico Mayer and James Welborn have also extended till after the next Euros. Nottingham Forest are talking to Vitor Pereira about taking over from the sacked Sean Dyche. talkSPORT presenter and Forest fan Max Scott says the club is now hurtling toward relegation.
If we do return to the Championship, how great would it be to have Steve Cooper back to inject a bit of good feeling into the club? There's not a chance that I think he'd manage us in the Premier League. I think that relationship's been sort of severed.
Forest's next game is away to Fenerbahce in the Europa League. That's live on talkSPORT 2 next Thursday. We understand Roberto De Zerbi is being sounded out for the Spurs job. The board haven't yet decided if they want a permanent replacement for Thomas Frank or an interim till May. And at the Winter Olympics, the IOC spokesperson Mark Adams has explained why a Ukrainian skeleton pilot is banned from competing today.
We wanted him before and after to express himself, but for that 1 minute of competition, we asked him not to make this expression.
Vladislav Heraskevich was asked not to wear a crash helmet covered in pictures of athletes killed during Russia's invasion. The Ukrainian refused, saying this is the price of our dignity. More at talksport.com.
talkSPORT News.
So Jim Ratcliffe says sorry if his choice of language has offended some people, and kids caught carrying knives will undergo mentoring sessions to cut offending in England and Wales. More from the news team at past.
talkSPORT weather with QuickFit. Come rain or shine, we've got your electric car covered with 400 EV ready centres, so you can drive away happy every time.
Cloudy afternoon for most of the UK. Spells of rain about. Sunny spells in southwest England though. Some hill snow in Scotland and northern England as well.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's 4 minutes past 12 noon. It's Jim White, it's Simon Jordan, and we are live on talkSPORT. Very shortly, we're going to be joined by Spencer Oliver as we talk boxing, as we usually do in a Thursday lunchtime, and today is no different. So Jim Ratcliffe had claimed in an interview with Sky News that the UK had been, quote, colonised by immigrants. Since then, Sir Jim has apologised for his choice of language, and in any case, that if it's offended anyone, if it's offended anyone in any way, then they have his apology. But Simon, in the last few moments, the Football Association is to examine whether or not co-owner of Manchester United Sir Jim Ratcliffe's controversial comments about immigrants have brought the game into disrepute. That's according to the Press Association.
I think that's contemptible. He's apologised for people taking offence. He hasn't apologised for what he said. He obviously stands by what he says. He apologises if people are offended by it, and that's their choice. But the FA getting themselves involved and suggesting he's brought the game into disrepute is just laughable. Sorry. Look, the reality of it is he's entitled to freedom of speech. He is a free individual. He may well be the part shareholder of Man United, and I don't agree with his choice of words. But the fact of the matter is, he is allowed to say or have an opinion, and people are allowed to disagree with it.
Yeah,
so
but
people
freedom of speech doesn't equal freedom of consequence.
Well, what is
if the FA does rule that the comments brought the game into disrepute?
How has it brought the game into disrepute? He's not done it at a football forum. He's not done it in the football fraternity. He's talking at a business conference in Antwerp. He is allowed to have an opinion.
If a player had said it, do you think the FA would be charging that player?
It depends in what context the player said it. If he said it at a football press conference, uninvited and for no particular reason, it might have its challenges.
Well,
but
this isn't going on for no reason,
even then, because people are using it for a variety of different reasons. Political parties are using it for currency to deflect, to be able to show how virtuous they are and wonderful they are, and the FA are going to do the same thing. It's silly. People are allowed to have an opinion, people are allowed to be upset by it, and people are allowed to clarify what they meant by it.
Right. So Jim did claim the UK has been colonised by immigrants. Since then, he is now apologising for, quotes, the choice of language. And now this lunchtime, we hear the FA will examine whether or not his controversial comments about immigrants have brought the game into disrepute. That's the very latest on what Sir Jim said to Sky News. Time for this. Spencer Oliver has joined Simon and myself in studio this lunchtime. Spencer, far from having to apologise for anything, we welcome you with open arms.
How are we, gentlemen? It's been a bit of a lively morning for you two, hasn't it?
He should be apologising. He was no defender of my valour last week, was he, with Deontay Wilder?
Oh.
He sat there cheering him on.
Oh,
now
please.
That takes us to the moment that Deontay Wilder took serious exception to Simon's line of questioning in that interview last week, got on his hind legs in front of Mr. Jordan, and it all got a bit nasty. And at one stage, we all thought Simon might get one in the kisser here. But Deontay then turned round and walked out, stormed out of the studio. But there has been a fair amount of talk, Spencer, by those who witnessed the incident, by those who were in the building at the time, that you offered next to no assistance.
Thank you, Jim.
To Mr. Jordan during his hour of need.
Jim, think about it.
Would you like to
Deontay Wilder was
Would you like to apologise?
No, because I'm going to tell you the true story.
It offended me.
Deontay Wilder was raging, nearly crying with rage when he stood up. At that point, I'm looking at Deontay, I'm looking at Simon, and I'm thinking, he's going to go. Deontay's going to go here. And then all of a sudden, he turns around and he walks out the room. Did you think about why he turned around and walked out the room? Do you think about who
did you blow off or something?
Defused that incident?
Shut up,
Who
Spencer.
saved Simon Jordan?
You defused the incident?
I defused the incident.
Now, this is a bit of breaking news, because some would say there was a suggestion that you and Chisora egged Deontay on. But anyway, what did you, in all honesty, what did you think of the way Wilder behaved towards him? Because it was a perfectly legitimate line of questioning from Simon about, let's talk Tyson Fury. We ain't doing that. Let's talk Tyson. We're not doing that.
Yeah, being totally honest, it was one of those weird situations because Simon obviously asked a question that everyone wanted to know, and that was about Tyson Fury. He didn't want to respond to that, but somehow turned it into a race round, talked about, white privileges, black slavery, and I don't know where he was going with it. I don't know where it come from.
Yeah.
At no point did Simon talk about that. He was talking about Tyson Fury, so it was all very bizarre, very strange. Caught up with him a few hours after at the press conference. It was all love. He wanted a cup of tea with Simon, sit down, have a chat with him. Yeah, it was all a bit weird. But
man, are you willing to have a cup of tea with Deontay?
Well, I'm offended, and I want an apology first.
Oh God!
It all blew over. Anyway, life goes on.
Jim, at that time, he didn't want an apology. He wanted a change of underwear at that point.
I'll bet he did. I saw the look in his face, and it's not
So did I.
the one he's got
So
now.
did
The job he left when he did.
So many of us left hugely disappointed that Deontay didn't give Simon one on the side of the head. Not at all. I wouldn't advocate violence in this show. Fabio Wardley is finalising the terms for a WBO heavyweight title defence against Daniel Dubois on May the 9th. Wardley Dubois. We're having some of that, Spencer, are we not?
Great fight. That is a great fight. And a tough first defence for Fabio Wardley. Of course, he'll start the favourite. Momentum's with him. Great win against Joseph Parker. Daniel Dubois coming off the loss to Alexander Usyk. You don't know how he's going to be coming back into it. But he wants to jump back on the saddle, go in, get that opportunity, and he's got it. Against Fabio Wardley. And that is a great fight. That is one of the best fights in the heavyweight division, stylistically, at the moment. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that one. I'm hearing, May the 9th is the date. Possibly Manchester could be the venue. I know that O2 was rumoured.
Manchester, I had the conversation this morning, maybe Wembley, maybe Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fight that merits a venue.
Oh, yeah.
Like Wembley, like the Tottenham Hotspur, like Manchester.
Well, first of all, it's a heavyweight clash.
Should it fill it?
Of one former world champion and one current world champion. Fabio Wardley is very popular and is building up a reputation, and people like him because he speaks brilliantly when you ever hear him. He's a very pleasant fellow, but he's done great work in the ring recently, with Joe Parker being the latest victim and recipient of outcomes that people projected that he couldn't achieve. Daniel Dubois divides opinion, but because ultimately there's so many people that believe that Daniel Dubois can be another world champion again, but there's a section of the audience that thinks that maybe Daniel doesn't have the mental switch to deal with the real adversity when it comes on top. But what they both can do is they can punch. And what you're going to see is a real fight. And it should be one that's easy to make, because both of them are in Frank's stable. Frank will have the situation that he had back in the day with Joe Joyce and Daniel Dubois, which is mixed emotions about who wins this fight. But as far as the viewing public are concerned, could it fill a big auditorium? Yeah, I think it could if we get a proper media push behind it. And will it be a good fight? Absolutely.
And for both of you, where does victory propel the winner?
Well, listen, the winner is obviously looking for those unification bouts. What happens with Alexander Usyk? We're sort of uncertain with that at the moment. What happens with the belts? We're uncertain with those at the moment as well. But for the winner, it puts them in prime position for these huge fights. And for the loser, they're young enough to come back again. There is a rebuild here for both of these guys. So it's not like it's a must-win fight for either one of these. Explosive fight. Stylistically, it's about who catches who first. Because Daniel Dubois can whack. That is for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And if he lands that shot...
Very bold of Fabio, because this is his first defence of a world title that some would say that necessarily he didn't win, because ultimately the situation stripping Usyk and giving it to the winner of the Parker fight with Fabio Wardley was an eliminator rather than for the belt. But he won a world title. Right? He's a world champion, a legitimate bona fide world champion, because the former fighter at the time was Joe Parker, and he beat him in what should have been for the belt anyway. But Fabio taking this as a first defence, it's either very canny because he thinks potentially in the back of his mind that Daniel Dubois is damaged and vanquished, and in a position of potential weakness and slightly diminished fighter, or there is an inherent belief that Fabio Wardley just doesn't worry about who he's fighting, because this is a first fight for him against what people would consider to potentially be someone that can win a world title. Of course, if Moses Atoma comes rowing over the horizon sooner rather than later, they all might not have no belts.
Yes,
but the fact is that it's a great fight and very bold of Fabio to take it.
From what you're saying, Simon, would a loss do more long-term damage for Wardley than it would for Daniel?
No, I think it will do more damage for Daniel.
Yeah,
right. Because it's one thing getting beaten by Alexander Usyk. People will not be able to get out of their minds until Fabio Wardley slays everyone that he was a white-collar fighter, that was lucky against Justice Hooney, that's gotten lucky at times. They're coming round to I'm not in that camp, by the way. He deserves every piece of credit that he got. But until Fabio dispels every single myth that will still be resident in people's minds, he's always going to have that challenge. So if he were to lose to Daniel Dubois, half of people would potentially bake it into their thinking that that's okay. Whereas if Daniel Dubois loses to Fabio Wardley, I'm not sure where he goes from there.
Who wins it, Spence?
Tough fight. I think that you have to go with momentum, which would be with Fabio Wardley. He's the one that's in form. We don't know, what the effect of the Alexander Usyk loss is going to have on Daniel Dubois. We know he's that sort of character that would rather get straight back into a big fight as opposed to a rebuild. So I don't think that he's that character, needs a rebuild. You have to go with Fabio on recent form.
Fabio?
Yeah, I mean, you never write off Daniel. I think Daniel's wired differently, so I don't think a loss affects Daniel in a way that it might affect other fighters because of the way he processes things and the way he thinks.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it damages him psychologically. But Fabio Wardley is so game and can take big shots. And I just feel that Fabio just might have the edge on Daniel.
And being that game, by the way, with Fabio, this is what makes this fight so exciting and why you can see a way that Daniel wins, because he's that game.
He's going to get
hit.
And
he does take them shots. He will get hit. And Daniel, any heavyweight you speak to that has ever shared the ring with Daniel or sparred with him says that by far the biggest puncher out there. So it's a fascinating fight.
Disappointingly, Nick Ball's homecoming weekend was spoiled by one Brandon Figueroa. Nick Ball's trainer, Paul Stevenson, will join us next. We're live on talkSPORT with Selco, where the trade goes.
My view of punditry is when I listen to a pundit, whoever that pundit might be, whatever they may be, whether it's male, female, black, white, yellow, green, it's do I learn something from them? Do they engage me? Do I find them interesting and entertaining? And do they merit my attention? And that's my response to the reasons why I was saying the things I said.
He's sitting right beside you.
Yeah, I it's an opinion, isn't it? Which Indeed. We're all entitled to. I put value on opinions. Right, you have to, because there's
Depends where they come from,
everybody has them, right? So I'm not going to listen to a mob on X who've never ever put themselves in any situation to do anything close to what I've done in my career. I listen to the professionals, right? I listen to the people who've hired me for the last 11 years around the world, the biggest broadcasters in the world. By default, if I'm working with the people who are considered the brilliant broadcasters, then if I'm in the same team as them, next to them, then by default, I'm considered also a brilliant broadcaster. So I take everything you're saying, but the reality is I've been good enough for 11 years, right? And as I said, I'm the person that will go and seek out feedback for someone to go, I think you're struggling. It's never happened.
See, the language that you use, Annie, is, to me, it's steeped in a sense of entitlement. I mean, the sheer weight of the entitlement that you seem to believe that you have would resink the Titanic. I think you've been quite fortuitous. I think because of initiatives like DEI, they've allowed people to be put into positions in the men's game that I don't think they've merited. And now that sort of seeds an attitude that you become a stalwart in the women's game.
Thursday lunchtime, we're talking boxing with Spencer Oliver, who's in studio at this lunchtime. We're delighted that he is. Gives us the opportunity to talk next about what next for Nick Ball. Nick Ball lost his WBA featherweight title belt after being stopped in the 12th round by Brandon Figueroa in front of his home crowd in Liverpool. It was an anticlimax for many who thought that Ball would come through this challenge, but he didn't. The fight seemed nip and tuck after 11 rounds. But at the start of the 12th, Figueroa sent Ball to the canvas. Ball beat the count, but Figueroa pounced and knocked him through the ropes, and that ended the fight. I'm delighted to say, guys, 3 becomes 4 because the trainer of young Nick Ball, Paul Stevenson, joins us live on the show. Paul, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hello, everyone.
Thanks so much for joining us. Paul, I mean, the dust has settled now, hasn't it? How do you reflect on what happened on Saturday night?
Jim, it's the massive disappointment for Nick, but it's the business we're in, isn't it? And yeah, obviously very proud of everything he's done. He's had a great run, 6 world title fights in the last 2 years, and now obviously we've just been caught with an unsighted shot, and it was a close fight. I personally felt we could have been a round up going into the last. I thought Nick was landing the more eye-catching shots, but then at the end of the day, it just happens.
Yeah, Paul, Brandon Figueroa was the mandatory challenger, so you did have to fight him. You know, he did have a considerable height and reach advantage over to you, but there's nothing you've overcome before. Ray Vargas, you know, when he boxed Ray Vargas, it was a similar sort of height, so you knew how to deal with that sort of stuff. You always knew it was going to be tough. I wanted to talk to you about when it went into that 12th round, Paul. You said there yourself, you know, that it was nip and tuck. I think I had it level going into that one. What was the advice that you gave him going out in that 12th round? Was it that you need to roll the dice here and go for it, like this fight is on, you know, close? I mean, what were the tactics going into the last?
No, the tactics, because it evolved as the fight went on, so it became clear early on that when we got inside with Figueroa, it was quite messy, and he's not cuffing punches, very difficult to land a clean work. So down the stretch, we were having to catch him on the way in and then just nullify him on the inside and not really engage too much, just walk into him, walk him out of there. But he was landing some good eye-catching shots going into bringing him on, and so we had him in the last round just to do more of the same. Obviously, I'll tell him it's tight, it's close, but I wasn't telling him to I need a knockout or anything like that. As it turned out, we did. But I mean, I was ahead really, as say, by a round or so. But obviously, to have a good strong finish, Nick went out and threw a 1-2 left hook, because he threw his left hook, a left hand come over the top, which kid hadn't threw before, to be honest, in the whole fight. He just caught him. Nick didn't do too much wrong, really, did he, Spencer? He just
what was your assessment of his performance, Nick? Because I was talking to Paul Smith about him the other day, about how Nick starts fights and how he sets a ferocious pace, and he felt that Nick started this fight with not the same pace, and it might have been out of respect for the opponents, because the previous opponents, Ronnie Reyes, TJ Dahoney and Sam Goodman, in Paul's view and my view too, are not at the same level as Figueroa. Was there a different game plan going into this fight? Is there any resonance in what I've just said about the pace that Nick normally fights at, as opposed to the pace that he started this fight with?
No, I mean, I don't think he started particularly slowly. He just every fight's a different fight, isn't it? So against Vargas, you could say he started slowly. He's someone who will have a look at you for the first 2 rounds, Nick. If you look at a lot of his fights, he has a look. He's got a reputation for being a buzzsaw, which he is, but he's also quite a thinking boxer, and so and the title's valuable, and so is his health. So he's not going to walk in crazy. Figueroa was a good fighter, but it wasn't a conscious decision on any of our part to start at a slow pace or a fast pace, but just to go out and assess the situation, and then to think on the wing, which is what we're good at doing, what Nick's good at doing.
Paul, as often can happen in these fights, the other camp members of it, none too happy with what was going on before the fight and after the fight. We'll get to the after the fight bit in a moment. But Figueroa's coach, Manny Robles, claimed before the fight that their team faced poor treatment, saying Nick Ball's hands were wrapped without supervision from Figueroa's team. So Robles was speaking on the Seconds Out Boxing channel. Have a listen, Paul.
Listen, I'm going to put it out there. The referee did a horrible job. Listen, coming in, we knew they weren't going to do us any favors. We knew that. There were the stuff that went on in the locker room prior to the fight, you know, with the whole hand wraps. We show up to the venue, and Nick Ball's got his hands wraps already without our supervision, you know, and that you can't do that. Especially, it's a main event fight, and we talked about this at the fighters meeting. Hey, listen, I want to watch your hand wraps, vice versa. Great. And we show up, hey, he's got his hands wrapped already. What do you mean? And the commission's like, well, there's nothing we can do. And then I called the WBA supervisor. He didn't do anything. They're like, no, we can't do that. What's done is done. No, rules are rules. And so we felt disrespected. Obviously, it got fixed. Listen, it's a long story, but anyway, that's the type of stuff we had to deal with.
Well, Paul, even the baby crying in the background didn't seem happy with it all.
No.
What was going on?
I'm really glad you've asked me, Jim, right? Because I've seen this type of thing all over the internet, and the British sort of YouTubers who put it out there, big bad headlines, Everton Red Triangle, cheating, hand wraps, all this stuff. You're the first person to ask me, right? So, I've got 5 fighters on that bill. I've got 3 of the last 5 on the bill of mine. So I've got Brad Strand's hand, Nick's hands, and Andrew Kane's hands together at 7 o'clock because I haven't got time to do it in between each fight. I've got 1 fighter in between each one. And then so I send a message I'm using my phone, I'll show you the message, Saturday morning to Simon Legg, the Queensberry Whip, and I say, these are me wrapping times. It'll be earlier than usual because of the situation. Got 3 of the last 5 fighters are mine. So enemy times, please pass it on to me opponent's exact words. I could show you the message. So we turn up. There's nobody there to wrap the hands. Sorry to watch us. I get the WBA supervisor in. Can you find them? They're not about. I get the boxing board control official in. Same thing. No one's about. So they say to me, "You're gonna have to rap," and I rap. And then
sure.
They didn't turn up to Andrew Kane's fight, and then they turned up quite late, and then rap then. So it's on them. I've done everything I can do in that situation, and call our own sort of press, and they're calling us cheats without even asking me it's a simple explanation what happened.
No, it actually sounds like it, Paul, to be fair to you. What do you make of it, Spencer?
Well, listen, Paul, just to clarify this, just so that people understand this, the WBA supervisor was there. He was watching you wrap the hand. So, there is no real issue apart from that they've turned up late to miss that one. So if there's somebody there, a supervisor watching, there's no problem.
Yeah.
No, I mean, they've I don't know why they're moaning. They've won. I don't know. They're still not happy. I don't understand it, but they know what happened. It was fair and square. It was on them.
And Paul, the moaning went on. I mean, some members of your team were unhappy about the manner of Figueroa's celebrations while your man Nick Ball was recovering. Is there any truth in this? I mean, I've seen some of the pictures. It didn't seem that controversial, but one member of your team seemingly kicked out at Figueroa's team. Is that true?
Well, what happened was, obviously Nick's been knocked out. I've got no problem with anyone celebrating. We'll all celebrate. It's a big event, a big win for them in a very dramatic way when they probably thought they were behind the home against the home fighter. I wouldn't be surprised if they thought they needed a knockout and he got one. Fair enough. But one of the team quite a couple of them come flying over the top rope like wild animals. You don't always see it on the telly. This is happening. My boxers and a few of them ran into the ring. Like there's their gym mates on the floor. I'm not condoning anything they did, but that's what happened. Then the fella's trainer even come over to me, Figueroa's trainer, and said, "I'm sorry about that." He said, "He's not one of our team proper. He's a strength and conditioner." I said, "The fella's got no class. Keep him away from me." That was it. Andrew's gone over. This is a storm in a teacup, really. Andrew's 5'5". That fella's about 6'7", right?
Right.
He's tried to get to him. He's been pushed away, and I've seen worse things at weddings. It was a tiny little thing.
Yeah, it seemed very much heat of the moment type moment. Here's the thing: how do you rebuild Nick?
Okay. Well, firstly, I spoke to Nick on Monday and I said, days of grieving for the title end now, and now we're all about rebuilding and getting it back. So. He's gonna have a rest. I say 6 world title fights in a couple of years. The busy schedule takes a toll, so he's gonna have some time off. He's gonna go on holiday, and then we want to get him back out again probably in the summer. I would say get him a good comeback fight, and then he's ready to go straight back in. Look, they're fighters like Nick, exciting fighters. They're always gonna have opportunities. Look at now, Josh Warrington, and He's got another massive fight with Lee Wood coming up, and they've been at it years, them, haven't they? So there's plenty of things out there. People are always going to watch Nick. Very watchable, very exciting.
Oh yeah. And Paul, give Nick our best if you can. Paul Stevenson, trainer of Nick Ball, who will fight again. Of that, there is no doubt. It's 12:30.
Romero does what he does. Right, ridiculous tackle. Thomas Frank cannot be blamed for that loss at Man United. Now, he can be blamed for for leaving the armband with him, or not getting in his head to behave better or control his emotion. That's partly the manager's job. But for Romero to do that after the ridiculous social media stuff, which I still don't understand. You know, what the hell? He should have been fined 2 weeks' wages for that, and probably dropped from if they had more players fit and left if they had Danso fit. Well, just right, because what is he actually saying there? If he's saying to the hierarchy, we haven't got enough players. I mean, is he absolutely stupid? I mean, forwards: Muani, Richarlison, Odebear, Solanke, Madison, Simons, Kudos, Kulusevski, Tell. Forget if you think they're good enough. There's loads of players. Midfield: Sarr, Gallagher, Bergvall, Gray, Bentancur, Paulinho. Now, they've got more forward options than any other team in the Prem. So what's he saying? Now, if he'd have come out and gone articulately, I think we've got to have a look at the medical stuff. Or the coaching. Something's not right. The pitches. We can't have that many players injured. Something's not right here. Something's got to be looked at. Someone upstairs has got to look at what's going on with all these injured players. How can we have that many injured players? That's ridiculous. I'd go, strong, you know, but maybe he's got a point. His point, there's no substance to the out.
There's no intelligence with it, is there?
No, because they've got more players. They've got more options in forward play. They've got, I've just named 9. It's
We understand Thomas Tuchel has agreed to extend his England contract till the 2028 Euros. The German's initial deal expired this summer, and Adrian Durham reckons an extension would avoid unnecessary speculation about Tuchel's future.
If you go into the World Cup with his future not tied down, with him not knowing what he's doing straight after the World Cup, is there potential there that he could be having conversations through his agent or directly with clubs?
The Forest hierarchy have wished Sean Dyche the best of luck for the future after sacking him. talkSPORT's Max Scott has sympathy with Dyche, whose reign lasted just 114 days.
There's been a lot of chaos at the club, particularly the arrival of Edu, who spent 180 million on sort of players that have had zero impact on the first team.
Elsewhere, Pep Guardiola says Erling Haaland has a niggle. He came off at half-time during City's win over Fulham. On the red side of Manchester, Sir Jim Ratcliffe claims his unpopular choices at Man United are now paying off. He sacked 2 managers and laid off dozens of staff. And at the Winter Olympics, Ukrainian skeleton pilot Vladislav Hereskevich has been banned from competing after continuing to wear a helmet covered in pictures of athletes killed during Russia's invasion. Hereskevich says this is the price of our dignity.
It's Jim White, it's Simon Jordan, and it's Spencer Oliver, and we are live and talking boxing on talkSPORT this Thursday lunchtime. We're also coming to you live on your TV. So many of you getting in touch, enjoying the boxing chat. There is joy. You guys highlight some boxers who we don't want to forget about. Nick Ball tried his best, it didn't work out. Nick will be back. You're quite right, Joey, he will. We try to highlight as many boxers as we can, and when you're in the company of Spencer by and large knows every single one of them, and we have access to the main people around those fighters. And one such individual would be top boxing trainer Andy Lee, who, amongst many other things, looks after Hamza Shiraz. I'm delighted that Andy has joined us live. Andy, good afternoon.
Good to speak to you.
Good to speak to you, Andy, and thanks for joining us. Let's start with Hamza, because many people getting in touch, saying that they're big fans of Hamza Shiraz, as am I have to say. I've met him on a number of occasions. I love the guy, but Spencer and Simon will talk more about his boxing prowess. But Hamza's seeking a new opponent for the WBA's super middleweight title after Paquetá withdrew from a possible contest. Is that right, Andy? Where are we at with Hamza?
Yeah, Pacheco had some issues with his manager, and I think he's changed manager, so he withdrew from fighting Hamza, and now it looks like we're going to fight the number 3 or number 4, which is Alan Begic of Germany, who's a quite accomplished fighter, but it's a great situation for Hamza. It'll be a challenge, but it's a great situation for him to win a title and, then look for bigger fights.
Yeah, I think he's really put himself in a brilliant position, Hamza, hasn't he? Since moving up from middleweight to super middleweight, he's looked a far better fighter than he ever was at middleweight. There was also talk of the WBC champion, wasn't there? Christian Mbili as well, Andy. I think that was being talked about as well at one point, which would have been a great fight.
It would have been a great fight. And that's a fight that can happen down the line, maybe in a unification, maybe. But, Hamza's put himself really at the top of the pecking order with that performance in New York last year when he knocked out Edgar Berlanga, a fight he was like a 7-1 underdog, and just showed how good he was. And listen, Oliver, I don't know how he made middleweight. And for a time, he was making light middleweight. He's 6'4". He walks around as a cruiserweight. So I don't know how he made middleweight.
Yeah, I think we saw that he outgrew that weight, didn't he, when he challenged and got the draw actually with Carlos Adames. But he looked a shell of his normal self, should I say. And then moving up, and that win against Berlanga was something special.
Yeah, it was really, it was a statement win to go into, Berlanga's backyard, New York, and to do that to him the way he did and the manner of which he did it was impressive. But I knew it was in him, and there's still a lot more to improve, and that's the scary thing with him.
Andy, any merit? I mean, lots of noise is made about Chris Eubank Jr., and there's a potential suggestion back he comes. I've always advocated for him getting in against a live one, which Hamza most certainly is. Any merit, any interest besides perhaps bank balances in fighting Chris Eubank Jr. if that fight were offered you guys?
I think there is, because of the name recognition of Eubank Jr. and also the fighter he has been. We all could see that, making that weight has killed him to fight Ben, and probably took all the goodness out of him. Although you don't take any credit away from Conor Ben, but I think he'd be a lot more. He'd be dangerous at super middleweight, which he's fought at before. Years ago, he was a super middleweight, and now he goes back down to middle, which was ill-advised, really, if he probably thinks about it. Because, you make these decisions and you think you can do them, and you wish and hope the best, but in hindsight, as a fighter, he probably regrets it, going down that much weight to not perform like that.
Yeah, Andy, Fabio Wardley beat your man Joseph Parker. I was there. 11th round technical knockout back in October at the O2 here in London. God, it doesn't seem that long ago, but it was. How's Joseph? What's going on with him? Because so much controversy surrounding Joseph, who is the most phenomenal professional, I think one of the best I've ever met in your sport. 3 weeks after the loss to Wardley, it was revealed Joseph had returned a positive result for cocaine following this routine test by the VADA people on the day of him meeting Wardley. You must have been taken by surprise as much as anybody else was by that, surely.
It really rocked me. I think it's one of your, as a coach, it's probably your worst nightmare to find out one of your fighters has failed a drug test. But the situation is, it's quite strange that the test on the day of the fight for substance like cocaine, which is not performance enhancing, it's probably the worst thing you could do going into a fight is take cocaine. So there's been an investigation, an internal investigation as a team. His manager, David Higgins, and myself, and the other people in the team. And this is not for me to say right now, but it will come out. Joe's working with lawyers in the UK and appealing the decision. And there's been no, like, he doesn't know how long he's banned for. He doesn't really know what the ruling is yet, but there will be some appeal, and Joe's quite confident that he'll be exonerated with the evidence that I've seen and heard from Joe and David Higgins.
How is Joseph, Andy? He must have been shattered by it.
He's doing his best. He's still getting around. He went to the Ring Magazine Awards, and he went to the Anthony Joshua fight when he fought Jake Paul, and he's training, but it's really shook him, and he was just at a loss how it got into his system.
Yeah, I spoke to him a couple of times, actually, Andy, only via text and stuff, but he seemed in good spirits, and he was, he said the same as what you're saying there, that it will all come out and he will prove his innocence. It was a massive blow to us, of course, with the substance that it was. Can I just ask you, Andy, so as we currently speak, is Joseph Parker banned, suspended, or is he still okay?
I think he won't be licensed to fight. I think it's still under investigation, or but listen, Joe's quite philosophical about it because he's got a great upbringing, and he's quite a man of faith, and he believes that it'll come to light soon what happened, and he'll be exonerated. And people know Joe, and I think I think he deserves the right to, not be judged yet because of the person he is and the fighter he is, and people know what he's done, who he is over his career, and how he's been.
Andy, can I reflect back on that Joseph Parker fight against Fabio Wardley and ask you directly what the thinking was? Because we all looked at that fight, and obviously what's gone on post the event has taken over the circumstances surrounding what Joseph Parker's direction of travel may be. He goes into a fight that he doesn't need to take, and the perception was ultimately he fights it in a way that he didn't need to fight it. So we're trying to understand, given the repute that you come with, what was the thinking behind Joseph Parker fighting Fabio Wardley in the way that he seemed to fight him, because it seemed to be the polar opposite, how everyone around us was saying that potentially he would fight, how he needed to fight, and how fighting the way he did potentially gave Fabio Wardley the opportunity. So I'm trying to work out from you, what was the thinking? Because you would have seen the direction of travel in the fight, you would have seen how Joseph was fighting the fight, and you would have perhaps tried to change it, wouldn't you?
Well, the Fabio Wardley fight came about, if you remember, back in the summer of 2005. Usyk was retired, and then he was a champion in recess, and then he claimed he had a back injury. So there was no chance for Joe to fight Usyk. And Joe had not fought. He had a fight with Zhang in 2003 in March. Then he had 2 rounds with Bakoli in February. And he needed to fight. And if he was going to ever challenge Usyk, he needed to be active. The fight they proposed to us was Wardley or Dubois.
So that's the reasons for the fight, but the actual fight itself.
Usyk wasn't in the frame, and then
fair enough.
The fight gets made, and then within after on the fight week, Usyk announced that he'll fight the winner, which he hasn't done subsequently, but. So then it was like, if that would have been the case, why not just fight? Why didn't we just fight Joe?
I hear all that, Andy.
But also
the fight itself.
The fight is a fight, and it can go. When you're in a fight, you can have all the best plans in the world, but sometimes you just got to fight. It's not. Joe was winning the fight, was using his jab well, but you have to give the fighter some autonomy sometime, and. He felt at times he could take Fabio Wardley out. But you've got to give huge credit to Wardley, how he fought, how he dug in. And not that he surprised me, but he's got a great fighter's mentality, Wardley, and a great fighter's heart. And it was a great fight between two of the top heavyweights. So in a heavyweight battle like that, when they're punching so hard, that's what can always happen.
Yeah, I think ultimately, Andy, I think when you're a heavyweight, you'll have a game plan, and Joseph's was obviously to stay on the outside as much as he can and wait for Wardley to come in and make those mistakes and make him pay for that. But at some point, as a heavyweight, you have to bite down and you have to trade it out. And I think that's what happened. It became a bit of a gunfight, didn't it?
Yeah. And Andy, if it is Wardley versus Dubois next, and we believe it is, who wins it?
Very interesting fight, isn't it? It's a pick-em fight, really. I would favour Wardley at the moment just because he's a man full of confidence, and we know he's walked through the fire a number of times with Hooney and now with Parker. And even early in his career with the likes of Nathan Gorman. You know, he's been in losing positions and comes back because, as I said earlier, fighters' mentality and fighters' heart. And it's Dubois who's got a lot more questions, even though he's probably technically better all around Dubois and a bigger puncher maybe. You don't know what's inside. You know, you don't know. There's a lot of questions over Dubois after the defeat to Usyk, and also now changing trainers.
Yeah.
So late in the day, you know, with Tony Sims now going back to Don Charles.
Andy Lee, we really appreciate your time this lunchtime. We'll speak again. Andy Lee, top boxing trainer, of course, the man who one time was working with Tyson Fury. We'll have Andy back at some stage soon as we approach 10 to 1 this Thursday lunchtime.
In the two high-profile times when I've accused anyone of racism or sexism, a High Court has agreed with me. A parliamentary committee has agreed with me. So, and I've got reams of evidence.
Oh, absolutely.
Of
I mean,
people.
you're talking about Mark Sampson and Joey Barton.
Right, but the point is, I'm not
But
the
that's
person.
the extreme end of the equation, isn't it?
What is the point?
No, but
Go on,
my
Annie.
point is, that's also replicated online. So there's reams and reams of evidence of people online.
But you did it to me. You told me.
apologise for
No,
that
I don't have a
because
problem with it
yeah.
because it's your opinion. You said to me about me that I'm a sexist.
No,
and I
didn't.
don't think
said-
I am. I think I have a strident
didn't say that.
opinion.
said
I have a
think
daughter.
I think you pander to an audience.
Yeah, and that in itself
I think you
could be considered to be something that people I could be robust in my rejection of it. It's your opinion. You're entitled to it,
Well, I think-
and I like you should do. I only take the value of a people's opinion from someone whose opinion I respect.
Yeah.
Your opinion isn't relevant to me, and my opinion to some extent shouldn't be relevant to you. And if you are strong in the views that you have, I admire you for having the strength of them. But everything that you seem to portray in life seems to be that every disadvantage that you have is because either you're a woman or because you're black, and it's got nothing to do with your contribution to the equation and the way that people perceive
Well, no,
you.
I'll always take responsibility if I think I've done something wrong. I'm the first person to apologise if I think, oh, I shouldn't have said that or that went the wrong way. You can find multiple examples of me apologising, but there is a reality that I do suffer sometimes a disadvantage because people abuse me for my identity. They don't actually focus on, I don't think she's a good person or good pundit because of X, Y, Z. They go into attacking your identity. Those are two different things.
boxing update on talkSPORT with DAZN, the global home of boxing. Sign up now at dazn.com/boxing.
Don't miss DAZN's stacked schedule, fights every week, and next weekend delivers the big one, 3 fight nights, one unmissable weekend only on DAZN. It all begins live from Nottingham next Saturday, a highly anticipated match, Lee Wood, Josh Warrington. Then later, Ryan Garcia chases his first world title against Mario Barrios for the WBC welterweight world title. That's live from Vegas. Finally, Clarissa Shields faces Franchon Cruz de Zurn in an undisputed heavyweight rematch on Sunday. Sign up to DAZN Ultimate. Get all these fights plus a minimum of 12 plus pay-per-views a year, including Garcia Barrios this Saturday, and no extra cost. Watch all these fights only on DAZN. Simon alongside Spencer this lunchtime. Just want to recap on matters Sir Jim Ratcliffe in the last hour or so. You may remember Sir Jim caused something of a storm by saying that Britain has been colonised by immigrants who are costing too much money. That was according to the co-owner of Manchester United, Sir Jim Ratcliffe. And it was the word colonised that seemed to land Sir Jim in a world of trouble and seemed to offend many people in many different quarters. In the last few moments, Sir Jim Ratcliffe has unusually issued an apology and given something of an explanation as to why he chose to use the words that he used. He says, "I am sorry that my choice of language has offended some people in the UK and Europe and caused concern, but it's important to raise the issue of controlled and well-managed immigration that supports economic growth." He says, "My comments were made while answering questions about UK policy at the European Industry Summit in Antwerp, where I was discussing the importance of economic growth, jobs, skills and manufacturing in the UK. My intention was to stress that governments must manage migration alongside investments in skills, industry and jobs so that long-term prosperity is shared by everyone. It's critical that we maintain an open debate on the challenges facing the UK." So that's come from Sir Jim Ratcliffe in the last few moments. Sir Keir Starmer has now reacted to that. The Prime Minister had asked for an apology and one has been issued, and it's absolutely right. He says that Sir Jim Ratcliffe has apologised for that language. So that's the very latest, Simon, on Sir Jim. Next time we hear from him, he may be talking about matters Manchester United. Who knows? That's the very latest on that particular issue. Spencer is in studio as we finish off with this hour of boxing, as we started at 12 noon. And Spencer, as you know, the first inaugural Zuffa boxing champion will be crowned on March the 8th. The IBF Cruiserweight champion Jai Opataya will face Brandon Glanton for the Zuffa Boxing Cruiserweight World title at the Meta Apex in Las Vegas. Zuffa Boxing, of course, made up on one hand by Dana White and on the other by Tuchel Al-Sheikh. How long do you think it's going to take, Spence, for Zuffa belts to gain credibility?
It's going to be tough to gain the credibility in boxing because the other belts are there, aren't they? The WBO, WBA, IBF, WBC, Ring Magazine. By the way, the Ring Magazine belt, I believe, is on the line for this one. There's no talk of that belt. I think they've sort of kept that quite quiet, but I do believe that the Ring Magazine belt is on the line. Jai Opataya is the Ring Magazine champion. But look, it's a tough one, Jim. I think that it's going to take time for the Zuffa belt to get any sort of recognition because they're going to have to get a lot of fighters involved in that.
Fights than this, by the way.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, listen, Brandon Glanton's a tough guy, but Jai Opataya for us is on a different level for sure. Yeah. Glanton's he's earned his opportunity, but you know, you see this as quite a one-sided fight for Jai Opataya. But yeah, look, I think the Zuffa boxing will make moves, that's for sure, because they've got the powerhouse behind that. Where they go, what direction of travel they take is going to be interesting over the next 12 months or so. But look, it's good for the sport. It's going to be interesting to see how it all turns out.
And we know it's going to turn out well for Jake Paul because that broken jaw that he sustained at the hands of Anthony Joshua has healed. And he is coming back to resume his boxing career later this year, apparently in a rematch with Tommy Fury in the UK.
Right.
Do we greet that with huge fanfare? And welcome back, Jake? Or do we give it a resounding, so what?
I was waiting for Simon's response, which you probably heard a little, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, look, I heard that Vidal Riley was also in the running as well. That would be quite... Yeah.
Would he take that fight?
Vidal would take them. Listen, it's all about the money, isn't it? And I think that Jake Paul certainly brings that. He wants to box on these shores. Listen, I think it'll be it'll be good if we get Jake over it against, a Vidal Riley type guy. Tommy Fury's been a little bit inactive, so I don't know if he sort of warrants that. I think that they probably want to go back in with Tommy Fury to right the wrongs of that last contest, because obviously the one of the losses on Jake Paul's record is to Tommy Fury, and I think that Jake Paul's probably improved a lot more than Tommy since then because of Tommy's inactivity.
Run faster.
Jake Paul, if you're listening, and he does tune into the Boxing Hour, we will invite you once you come to these shores into the studio here in the 17th floor of the News Building by London Bridge. Spencer, thank you so much as always.
Thank you.
Quite wonderful. As for you, see you Monday at 10. A lot to get through, but we did it. And Sir Jim has apologised. What do you know? It's 1 o'clock.